In the relentless chaos of our modern world, where distraction reigns supreme and emotional turbulence threatens to consume us, there exists an ancient philosophical beacon of wisdom that has survived millennia, offering a transformative path to inner peace and personal mastery. Stoicism, born in the bustling marketplaces of ancient Greece and refined through the turbulent landscapes of the Roman Empire, is not merely a philosophy, it is a profound technology of the human spirit, a revolutionary approach to living that transcends time and cultural boundaries. Imagine a way of thinking that could transform your deepest struggles into sources of strength, that could turn life's most challenging moments into opportunities for growth and self-discovery. This is the promise of Stoicism, a practical philosophy that does not simply offer abstract contemplations, but provides a concrete, actionable framework for navigating the most complex terrains of human experience. The Stoic philosophers, men like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, were not ivory tower intellectuals disconnected from real-world challenges. They were warriors, emperors, slaves, and politicians who developed these principles through direct, often brutal life experiences. They understood that true wisdom emerges not from avoiding life's difficulties, but from developing an unshakable internal resilience that can withstand any external storm. In an age of constant noise, overwhelming information, and persistent emotional manipulation, Stoicism offers a radical alternative. It is a philosophy of personal sovereignty, of reclaiming control over the only domain we truly can control: our own thoughts, reactions, and inner landscape. Where modern culture encourages us to be reactive, to be tossed about by every passing emotion and external circumstance, Stoicism teaches deliberate, conscious response. These are not mere theoretical concepts, but practical habits that have been cultivated and refined over centuries. Habits that can transform anxiety into calm, confusion into clarity, and perceived weakness into genuine strength. Habits that do not require special equipment, expensive training, or extraordinary talent. Only a willingness to fundamentally shift how we perceive and interact with the world around us. The Stoic approach is both brutally honest and profoundly compassionate. It acknowledges the inherent challenges of human existence while providing a roadmap for maintaining dignity, purpose, and inner tranquility, regardless of external circumstances. Whether you are facing professional challenges, personal setbacks, global uncertainties, or internal struggles, Stoic principles offer a timeless guide to navigating life's most complex terrains. As we explore these 10 transformative Stoic habits, we are not simply learning an ancient philosophy. We are discovering a revolutionary approach to human potential, a method of living that has empowered individuals to rise above their circumstances, to find meaning in suffering, and to cultivate an unshakable sense of purpose and resilience. Prepare to embark on a journey that will challenge everything you thought you knew about emotional control, personal growth, and the true nature of human strength. These are not just habits, they are keys to unlocking a profound and powerful way of experiencing life itself. In the intricate tapestry of human experience, Stoicism emerges not as a rigid set of rules, but as a living, breathing philosophy of adaptation and inner strength. Each habit we will explore is a thread carefully woven into the fabric of personal transformation, connecting ancient wisdom with the raw, unfiltered challenges of contemporary existence. The power of Stoic principles lies not in their theoretical complexity, but in their profound simplicity. These are not esoteric concepts reserved for philosophers and scholars, but practical tools that can be wielded by anyone willing to look inward and challenge their most deeply ingrained patterns of thinking and behaving. From the bustling corporate offices of New York to the quiet monasteries of remote mountains. From soldiers facing unimaginable battlefield pressures to entrepreneurs navigating economic uncertainties, Stoic habits have proven their universal applicability. Consider for a moment the extraordinary resilience required to maintain composure in a world designed to provoke, distract, and destabilize. In an era of constant digital bombardment, where external stimuli assault our senses every waking moment, the Stoic approach offers a revolutionary form of mental discipline. It is a method of creating an internal sanctuary, a space of calm and clarity that remains unbreached by the chaotic storms of external circumstances. These habits are not about suppressing emotion or becoming unfeeling. Instead, they represent a sophisticated approach to emotional intelligence that allows practitioners to experience the full depth of human feeling without being overwhelmed or controlled by those feelings. It is emotional mastery in its most elegant form, a delicate balance between passionate engagement and rational control. As we delve deeper into these transformative practices, we will uncover how ancient wisdom can be immediately and powerfully applied to the most pressing challenges of modern life. Each habit is a key, each principle a potential doorway to a more intentional, resilient, and meaningful existence. We are not simply studying a philosophy. We are exploring a comprehensive approach to human potential. The journey we are about to undertake is more than an intellectual exploration. It is an invitation, a challenge to reimagine what is possible within the landscape of human experience. These Stoic habits represent more than strategies for personal development. They are a profound technology of the human spirit, a map for navigating the most complex terrains of personal and professional life, with grace, courage, and unwavering purpose. Prepare to have your understanding of personal strength, emotional intelligence, and human potential radically transformed. The wisdom of the Stoics is not a relic of the past, but a living, breathing guide to thriving in the most challenging of human circumstances. Each habit we will explore is a tool, each principle a weapon in the ongoing battle against mediocrity, fear, and unconscious living. This is not just a documentary. This is a manual for reclaiming your most powerful self. Practice negative visualization. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the world is suspended between darkness and light, the Stoic philosopher sits in deep contemplation. His mind is not wandering through pleasant landscapes or dreaming of future triumphs, but deliberately walking through the shadowy corridors of potential disaster. This is not a descent into pessimism, but a calculated journey into the heart of human vulnerability. Premeditatio malorum, the practice of negative visualization, is an ancient psychological technique that transforms fear from a paralyzing force into a strategic tool of mental resilience. Imagine losing everything, your wealth evaporating like morning mist, your loved ones suddenly taken from you, your health crumbling, your reputation destroyed, your dreams reduced to ashes. Where most minds would recoil in terror, the Stoic philosopher leans into these scenarios with analytical precision and emotional courage. The practice is counterintuitive, yet profoundly powerful. By mentally rehearsing potential catastrophes, we strip them of their psychological venom. We recognize that our deepest fears are often phantoms, terrifying illusions that dissolve under the cold light of rational examination. When we consciously confront our worst-case scenarios, we discover a fundamental truth. We are far more adaptable, far more resilient than we ever imagined. The ancient Stoics understood something profound about human psychology. Fear of the unknown is often more devastating than the unknown itself. By bringing our deepest anxieties into the clear light of consciousness, we rob them of their mysterious power. We transform nebulous dread into a map of potential challenges, each one now examined, understood, and potentially navigated. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who ruled the Roman Empire, would start each day by imagining potential losses. What if war erupts? What if plague decimates my people? What if my closest advisors betray me? These were not idle worries, but strategic mental preparations. By confronting these scenarios in the safety of his mind, he developed contingency plans, emotional armor, and an unshakable sense of inner calm. This is not about wallowing in misery or cultivating a pessimistic worldview. It's about developing profound psychological flexibility. When we practice negative visualization, we're essentially conducting mental fire drills. We're preparing our emotional infrastructure to withstand potential storms, training ourselves to respond with clarity and composure instead of panic and paralysis. Consider the modern entrepreneur who visualizes business failure, not to discourage herself, but to develop robust backup strategies. Or the athlete who mentally rehearses potential injuries, ensuring she has comprehensive recovery plans. Or the parent who considers potential challenges their child might face, not out of anxiety, but to provide thoughtful, proactive support. Premeditatio malorum is an act of radical psychological empowerment. It transforms fear from a prison into a training ground. By voluntarily entering the landscape of our deepest anxieties, we discover something miraculous. Our capacity to endure is far greater than our capacity to fear. The Stoic does not seek to eliminate vulnerability, but to transmute it. Each imagined disaster becomes a tool for building inner strength, each potential loss an opportunity for deeper understanding. We learn that true freedom is not the absence of challenges, but the cultivation of an unbreakable spirit capable of facing those challenges with grace, wisdom, and unwavering resolve. In a world obsessed with comfort and constant positivity, the Stoic stands as a beacon of courageous introspection. Premeditatio malorum is not a practice of darkness, but a profound illumination, a radical act of mental preparation that turns potential suffering into a source of unprecedented inner power. The human mind is a masterful storyteller, spinning narratives of potential doom with a vividness that can paralyze even the strongest spirit. Yet within this seemingly destructive capacity lies an extraordinary evolutionary gift, the ability to anticipate, to prepare, to survive. Negative visualization is not a descent into pessimism, but a profound act of mental engineering. It is the deliberate practice of walking through the darkest corridors of possibility, not to be consumed by fear, but to emerge stronger, more resilient, more fundamentally alive. Consider the ancient Stoic standing at the edge of uncertainty. He does not shield his eyes from potential calamity, but stares directly into its depths. What if everything I love is stripped away? What if my carefully constructed world crumbles into dust? These are not idle musings, but strategic mental explorations. The practice reveals a counterintuitive truth. Our greatest suffering often comes not from actual loss, but from our inability to imagine surviving that loss. By mentally rehearsing potential catastrophes, we build an internal scaffold of resilience. We discover that within us lies an unexpected reservoir of strength, a core of adaptability that can withstand seemingly insurmountable challenges. Epictetus, the former slave who became one of philosophy's most profound teachers, understood this deeply. When preparing his students for life's unpredictability, he would encourage them to wake each morning and imagine everything they cherish could be taken away, not as a form of punishment, but as a form of liberation. By confronting the worst, we paradoxically free ourselves from the tyranny of fear. Modern psychology has begun to validate what the Stoics intuited centuries ago. Exposure therapy, cognitive behavioral techniques, mindfulness practices, these are contemporary echoes of an ancient wisdom. We are not meant to be prisoners of our fears, but architects of our inner landscape. Imagine the soldier preparing for battle, the entrepreneur facing potential business collapse, the parent contemplating their child's most challenging potential futures. Negative visualization is not about summoning disaster, but about building an internal toolkit of emotional resilience. It transforms potential trauma from an uncontrollable monster into a navigable terrain. The practice demands courage. It requires us to sit with discomfort, to look unflinchingly at our most profound vulnerabilities. But in that looking, something miraculous happens. The shadows lose their power. The imagined catastrophes become less monsters and more manageable challenges. This is not about creating self-fulfilling prophecies or dwelling in negativity. It is a strategic mental practice of building emotional immunity. Just as we develop physical resilience through controlled exposure to physical challenges, we develop psychological strength through controlled exposure to potential emotional challenges. Each scenario we mentally explore becomes a form of psychological inoculation. We learn that we are capable of enduring far more than we ever imagined. Our fears, when brought into the light of conscious examination, transform from paralyzing specters into manageable realities. The Stoic understands a fundamental truth. Life will bring challenges. Some we can anticipate, many we cannot. But our power lies not in controlling external events, but in developing an internal landscape of such profound resilience that no external circumstance can fundamentally break us. Negative visualization is an act of radical self-respect. It is saying to ourselves, I trust in my capacity to adapt. I trust in my ability to find meaning even in the most challenging circumstances. It is a practice of hope, disguised as an exploration of potential darkness. In a world that often encourages avoidance and constant positivity, The Stoic stands as a different kind of warrior, not fighting against life's uncertainties, but developing the internal strength to dance with them. Premeditatio malorum is not a practice of fear, but a profound declaration of human potential, a reminder that within each of us burns an unbreakable flame of resilience. The art of negative visualization is not a journey for the faint of heart. It is an expedition into the most treacherous terrain of human experience. The landscape of our deepest fears, our most profound vulnerabilities. Imagine standing at the precipice of your own mortality, not as a distant concept, but as an immediate, visceral reality. The Stoic philosophers understood that true freedom comes not from avoiding this precipice, but from walking its edge with deliberate, conscious steps. Each morning, as the first light breaks through the darkness, the practitioner of premeditatio malorum begins a ritual of radical mental preparation. What could go wrong today? Everything, absolutely everything. Your health might collapse, your relationships might shatter, your life's work could disintegrate into dust. But this is not a descent into despair. This is an ascent into understanding. The human mind is a masterful creator of protective illusions. We construct elaborate narratives of safety, building walls of denial around our most profound vulnerabilities. Negative visualization is the systematic demolition of those walls. It is a practice of radical honesty, of looking directly into the abyss without blinking. Consider the most successful individuals throughout history. They are not those who avoided potential catastrophes, but those who had the courage to imagine them in exquisite detail. The military strategist who plans for every possible defeat. The entrepreneur who maps out failure scenarios with the same intensity they map out success. The parent who prepares for the most challenging possible futures for their children. This is not pessimism. This is preparedness elevated to an art form. Seneca, the Roman philosopher who navigated the treacherous political landscapes of imperial Rome, would spend hours mentally rehearsing potential losses. What if wealth disappeared? What if political favor turned to persecution? What if everything he loved was suddenly stripped away? These were not idle musings, but strategic mental preparations. The practice reveals a profound psychological truth. Our suffering comes not from loss itself, but from our unexpected vulnerability to that loss. By mentally rehearsing potential catastrophes, we build an internal scaffolding of resilience. We discover reservoirs of strength we never knew existed. Imagine losing everything, not as a distant possibility, but as an immediate, tangible scenario. Your reputation destroyed, your loved ones taken, your health reduced to a fragile thread. The Stoic does not turn away from this vision, but leans into it with analytical precision and emotional courage. Each imagined disaster becomes a tool of liberation. We learn that our capacity to endure far exceeds our capacity to fear. The monsters of potential loss are stripped of their mysterious power, reduced to challenges that can be anticipated, understood, potentially navigated. This is not a practice for the comfortable or the complacent. It demands a special kind of courage, the courage to look unflinchingly at our most profound vulnerabilities, to sit with discomfort, to transform potential trauma from an uncontrollable monster into a navigable terrain. Modern psychology calls it exposure therapy, cognitive behavioral techniques, mindfulness practices. But the Stoics knew it centuries ago. True psychological freedom comes from confronting, not avoiding, our deepest fears. The world encourages us to chase constant positivity, to avoid discomfort at all costs. The Stoic offers a different path, a path of radical preparation, of building an internal landscape so fundamentally strong that external circumstances become challenges to be met, not catastrophes to be feared. Premeditatio malorum is not about summoning disaster. It is about developing an unbreakable spirit, a spirit that understands, deeply and fundamentally, that our true power lies not in controlling external events, but in our capacity to respond to those events with wisdom, grace, and unwavering resolve. In the quiet moments before dawn, as the world hovers between darkness and light, the practitioner of negative visualization sits in profound contemplation, not in fear, not in despair, but in the most radical form of hope imaginable, hope built not on illusion, but on a deep, unshakable understanding of human potential. 2. Control what you can, ignore what you can't. In the quiet stillness of an ancient Roman courtyard, Marcus Aurelius stands alone, his weathered hands tracing the marble columns. The emperor, philosopher, understands a profound truth that would echo through centuries. True power lies not in controlling the world around you, but in mastering your internal landscape. Imagine a storm raging outside. Wind howls, branches break, rain pounds against windows. Some people panic, their minds consumed by fear and helplessness. But the Stoic warrior sits calmly, understanding a fundamental principle of human existence. There are things we can control and things we cannot. Control is an illusion that torments humanity. We desperately grasp at external circumstances, believing we can bend reality to our will. But reality is a river, constantly moving, shifting, beyond our immediate manipulation. What we can control is our perception, our reaction, our inner world. Take a moment and breathe. Feel the air entering your lungs. That breath? That's control. Your thoughts, your responses, those are within your power. The stock market crashing, a global pandemic, a sudden job loss. These are external events that dance to their own unpredictable rhythm. The Stoic philosophy emerged from the bustling streets of ancient Athens, born from the minds of philosophers who understood human suffering at its core. Epictetus, once a slave, later a profound teacher, would say that true freedom comes not from changing the world, but from changing our perspective of the world. Mental preparation is not about prediction, but about resilience. Close your eyes and imagine the worst possible scenario. Your business fails. Your relationship ends. You lose everything you've worked for. By confronting these phantom fears, by walking through these dark mental landscapes, you rob them of their power. Fear thrives in uncertainty, but dies in deliberate contemplation. Uncertainty is the great human terror. We are creatures who crave predictability, who want to believe we can chart every moment of our existence. But life is not a mapped journey, it's an expedition into the unknown. The Stoics understood this fundamental truth. Preparation is not about controlling outcomes, but about preparing your mind to navigate whatever terrain emerges. Imagine a soldier preparing for battle. He cannot control the enemy's movements, the terrain, the weather. But he can control his training, his equipment, his mental state. He can rehearse scenarios, strengthen his body, sharpen his mind. When chaos erupts, he is not a victim. He is a strategic responder. This is not about suppressing emotion. The Stoics were not cold, unfeeling beings. They were deeply human, understanding that emotions are natural but should not control us. Anger, fear, disappointment, these are waves that pass through our consciousness. We can observe them, understand them, but not let them capsize our inner boat. Mental visualization is a powerful tool. Athletes use it. Military strategists employ it. By regularly imagining potential challenges, by walking through worst-case scenarios in our mind, we create mental pathways of response. We build psychological muscle memory. When challenge arrives, we are not shocked. We are prepared. Consider Seneca, the Roman philosopher who understood that true wealth is not measured in material possessions, but in mental resilience. He would counsel his students to periodically embrace discomfort, to live occasionally in harsh conditions, to eat simple food, to experience temporary poverty. Why? To prove to themselves that they could survive, that fear was often more debilitating than the actual experience. The world will always be chaotic. Pandemics will emerge. Economic systems will fluctuate. Relationships will transform. Personal tragedies will strike. But you can be the calm center of that storm. You can choose your response. You can decide how deeply you will let external circumstances penetrate your inner world. Control what you can. Your thoughts, your efforts, your preparation, your response. Ignore what you cannot. The randomness of existence, the actions of others, the unpredictable nature of life's grand design. In this delicate balance lies the essence of Stoic wisdom, a philosophy not of resignation, but of empowerment. As Marcus Aurelius would write in his private meditations, later known to the world as Meditations, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. These are not just words, they are a map, a compass, a way of navigating the turbulent seas of human experience. The sun rises over a windswept mountain, casting long shadows across a rocky landscape. Here, in the harsh terrain where survival demands absolute presence, the Stoic philosophy reveals its most profound truth. Adaptation is the ultimate human strength. Imagine a tree in a violent storm. A rigid tree will snap. A flexible tree bends, absorbs the wind's fury, and remains rooted. Humans are no different. Our greatest power lies not in resistance, but in our capacity to adapt, to flow around obstacles like water, finding its path through unyielding terrain. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle intimately. As Emperor of Rome, he faced constant challenges, political intrigue, military campaigns, personal losses. Yet his writings reveal a mind that saw obstacles not as barriers, but as opportunities for growth. Each challenge was a teacher, each setback a lesson in disguise. Consider the concept of negative visualization, a Stoic practice that seems counterintuitive in a world obsessed with positive thinking. Where modern self-help books encourage constant optimism, the Stoics advocated for a more nuanced approach. Regularly imagine loss, contemplate failure, walk through your deepest fears in the sanctuary of your mind. This is not pessimism. This is strategic preparation. A merchant who imagines losing everything becomes more resilient. A leader who contemplates total defeat develops more comprehensive strategies. A lover who understands the potential of heartbreak learns to love more deeply, more authentically. Epictetus, who transformed from a slave to a revered philosopher, lived this principle. Born into bondage, physically disabled, he understood that external circumstances do not define human potential. It's not what happens to you, he would say, but how you respond that matters. His life was a testament to mental resilience, a living embodiment of Stoic philosophy. The modern world bombards us with uncertainty, global pandemics, economic volatility, technological disruptions, social transformations happening at lightning speed. We are navigating uncharted territories where traditional maps of understanding become obsolete almost instantly. But the Stoic approach offers a compass, not a detailed map, but a way of orienting ourselves when traditional navigation fails. By separating what we can control from what we cannot, we conserve mental energy. We become strategic, deliberate, calm in the face of chaos. Seneca would often counsel his students to practice voluntary discomfort. Sleep on a hard floor, fast for a day, wear minimal clothing in cold weather, not as punishment, but as training. By experiencing temporary hardship, we expand our understanding of our own resilience. We prove to ourselves that we are capable of surviving and potentially thriving under challenging conditions. Mental preparation is not about predicting the future, it's about building an internal architecture of resilience. Like a well-designed building that can sway during an earthquake without collapsing, the Stoic mind is flexible, strong, adaptable. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, looking into an abyss of uncertainty. Most people would retreat, overwhelmed by fear. The Stoic philosopher steps forward, not with recklessness, but with a calm understanding that fear is often more destructive than the potential challenge itself. This is not about eliminating emotion. Emotions are the color of human experience. The Stoic approach is about not being controlled by those emotions. To feel deeply, yet respond thoughtfully. To acknowledge fear, yet not be paralyzed by it. In our hyper-connected, information-saturated world, this philosophy becomes more relevant than ever. We are constantly bombarded with potential scenarios of disaster, economic collapse, environmental catastrophe, personal failures. The Stoic method offers a shield, not by blocking these possibilities, but by processing them, understanding them, preparing for them. Every great leader, every remarkable individual throughout history has embodied this principle. They did not wish away challenges. They did not pretend difficulties did not exist. They prepared, they adapted, they remained flexible while maintaining an unshakable core of inner strength. As the world becomes more complex, more unpredictable, the Stoic philosophy emerges not as an ancient relic, but as a living, breathing guide to human resilience. It whispers an eternal truth. True power is not in controlling external events, but in mastering our internal response. Control what you can. Prepare for what might come. Remain flexible. This is the path of the Stoic warrior, a path of strength, wisdom, and profound inner peace. The human mind is a battlefield, not of external conflicts, but of internal struggles, the constant war between our primal reactions and our highest potential. Here, in the most intimate terrain of human consciousness, the Stoic philosophy wages its most profound battle. Imagine a warrior, not one armed with weapons of steel and bronze, but with the most powerful arsenal known to humanity, a disciplined mind. This warrior understands that every external challenge is first fought within the landscape of consciousness. Before a single drop of blood is shed, before a single strategic move is made, the battle is won or lost in the realm of perception. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, understood this fundamental truth. Walking through the bustling markets of Athens, observing human suffering, he recognized that our greatest enemy is not external circumstance, but our own uncontrolled reactions. A financial loss becomes a tragedy not because of the money lost, but because of the meaning we attach to that loss. Consider the concept of the dichotomy of control, a razor-sharp philosophical tool that cuts through the illusion of human powerlessness. Draw an imaginary line. On one side, place everything you can directly influence: your thoughts, your efforts, your responses, your preparation, your attitude. On the other side, dump everything beyond your immediate control: other people's actions, global events, random occurrences of the universe. Most humans spend their entire lives fighting on the wrong side of that line. They rage against the wind, they curse the storm, they exhaust themselves battling circumstances that care nothing for their emotional investment. The Stoic warrior does something radical. They redirect that energy. Instead of fighting the uncontrollable, they become a master of the controllable. Every ounce of mental energy is a precious resource. To waste it on futile resistance is the greatest form of self-destruction. Imagine a personal crisis, a sudden job loss, a devastating medical diagnosis, a relationship's unexpected collapse. The untrained mind immediately spirals into a vortex of fear, anger, helplessness. The Stoic mind does something different. It pauses, it observes, it asks, what can I actually do in this moment? This is not passive acceptance. This is active engagement with reality. Epictetus, who transformed from a slave to a philosophical genius, would argue that our perception creates our reality. A setback is not inherently good or bad. It is our interpretation that gives it power. The same event that crushes one person becomes a transformative opportunity for another. Mental preparation is an art form. It's not about creating a perfect shield against life's challenges, but about developing a fluid, adaptive internal response mechanism. Like a sophisticated computer system that can reroute around damaged circuits, the Stoic mind finds alternative pathways when primary routes are blocked. Regular negative visualization is not pessimism, it's strategic training. Military commanders simulate worst-case scenarios. Athletes mentally rehearse potential failures. Successful entrepreneurs constantly wargame potential business collapses. They do not do this to invite disaster, but to neutralize its potential emotional impact. By walking through our deepest fears in the safety of our mind, we rob those fears of their mysterious, paralyzing power. Fear thrives in darkness, in uncertainty. When we drag it into the light of conscious examination, it loses its mythical strength. The world is not a safe place. It never was. From the earliest human civilizations to our current hyper-connected global society, uncertainty has been the only constant. Pandemics emerge, economic systems collapse. Personal tragedies strike with ruthless randomness. The Stoic does not seek to eliminate this uncertainty, but to build an internal sanctuary that can withstand its assault. Marcus Aurelius, ruling the most powerful empire in the world, understood this intimately. In his private meditations, he did not write about his conquests or political maneuvers. He wrote about mental discipline, about maintaining inner calm amidst external chaos, about separating what he could influence from what was beyond his control. This is not a philosophy of resignation. This is a philosophy of empowerment, of recognizing that our internal world is the only true domain where we hold absolute sovereignty. External events are like weather, constantly changing, often unpredictable. But our response? That is the climate we personally control. As the ancient wisdom whispers through centuries, we cannot control the wind, but we can adjust our sails. We cannot stop the storm, but we can learn to dance in the rain. We cannot eliminate uncertainty, but we can build an unshakable core of inner resilience. Control what you can. Prepare for what might come. Remain fluid. This is the eternal dance of the Stoic warrior, a path of wisdom carved through the most challenging terrains of human experience. Third journal daily. In the quiet moments before dawn, as the world still slumbers, there exists a powerful ritual that has transformed the lives of philosophers, leaders, and seekers throughout history. Journaling, not merely the act of writing, but a profound introspective journey that cuts through the noise of existence and reveals the raw, unfiltered landscape of our inner world. Imagine Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, sitting in his tent during military campaigns, candlelight flickering, quill in hand, pouring his most intimate thoughts onto papyrus. He wasn't writing for fame, for publication, or for any external validation. He was writing for himself, a conversation with his deepest self, a method of understanding, of processing, of becoming. The Stoic philosophers understood something profound that most of us spend our entire lives trying to grasp. Our perception creates our reality. Every moment, every experience is filtered through the lens of our mind, and journaling is the most powerful microscope we have to examine that lens. It's not about recording events, but about understanding our reaction to those events. When life throws its most brutal challenges, loss, disappointment, betrayal, journaling becomes more than just writing. It becomes a form of emotional alchemy. You take the lead of raw, painful experiences and through careful reflection, transform them into the gold of wisdom and resilience. Each stroke of the pen is a step towards understanding, towards growth. Think about the chaos of modern life, the constant bombardment of information, the relentless noise of notifications, the endless stream of external stimuli designed to pull us away from our center. Journaling is an act of rebellion. It's a deliberate pause, a moment where you reclaim your inner landscape from the constant invasion of the external world. The beauty of journaling lies in its brutal honesty. Here, on these pages, you are free from judgment. You can explore the darkest corners of your mind, acknowledge your fears, dissect your failures, and celebrate your smallest victories. No filters, no pretense, just pure, unvarnished truth. But this isn't just about emotional catharsis. Stoic journaling is a strategic practice of self-improvement. By regularly examining your thoughts, your reactions, your patterns, you begin to see yourself with clarity. You start to understand the stories you tell yourself, the beliefs that drive your actions, the fears that hold you back. Epictetus, the former slave who became one of the most influential philosophers in history, taught that our power lies not in controlling external events, but in controlling our perception and response. Journaling is the training ground for this philosophy. Each day, you practice separating what you can control from what you cannot, learning to direct your energy towards meaningful action rather than futile resistance. Imagine having a conversation with your future self. That's what journaling enables. The insights you record today become lessons, guideposts for your future. You're creating a personal map of growth, a document that traces your evolution from confusion to clarity, from reactivity to wisdom. In a world that constantly tells you to look outward, to compare, to compete, to consume, journaling invites you to look inward. It's a radical act of self-respect. You're telling yourself, my inner world matters. My thoughts, my struggles, my growth are worthy of attention. The most successful people throughout history, from leaders and entrepreneurs to artists and philosophers, have used journaling as a cornerstone of their personal development. It's not a luxury or a hobby. It's a strategic tool for understanding yourself, for processing life's complexities, for continuous self-improvement. As you sit down to journal, remember, you're not just writing. You're engaging in an ancient practice of philosophical reflection. You're continuing a tradition that has guided humanity's greatest minds through their most challenging moments. You're creating a dialogue with yourself that has the potential to transform not just your perspective, but your entire life. Every blank page is an invitation to explore, to understand, to grow, an invitation to meet yourself truly and deeply, without judgment, without fear. This is the power of journaling, not just as a practice, but as a profound method of living. The blank page sits before you, pristine, intimidating, pregnant with possibility. But this is no ordinary page. This is a portal to your deepest self, a mirror that reflects not just what happened, but who you are becoming. Journaling isn't just writing, it's archaeology of the soul. Each word you inscribe is a carefully brushed away layer of dust, revealing the intricate artifacts of your inner landscape. The great philosophers, the resilient leaders, the most transformative minds in history, they understood something profound. That true understanding comes not from external conquest, but from internal exploration. Consider the practice beyond mere documentation. This is active meditation, a deliberate act of mental excavation. When you journal, you're not just recording events, you're interpreting them, processing them, transforming raw experience into distilled wisdom. Every challenge becomes a lesson, every setback a potential breakthrough. The human mind is a labyrinth of narratives, of stories we tell ourselves. Most people drift through life believing these stories without question. But the journaler? They become the narrator, the protagonist, and the critic. You learn to distinguish between the events that happen to you and the meaning you assign to those events. Physiologically, journaling is extraordinary. Neuroscientists have discovered that the act of writing engages multiple areas of the brain simultaneously. You're not just moving a pen, you're creating new neural pathways, rewiring your cognitive patterns, developing what psychologists call narrative intelligence. It's like a workout for your mental musculature. Trauma researchers have found something remarkable. Individuals who journal regularly demonstrate significantly higher resilience. It's as if the act of articulating your experiences creates a protective psychological barrier. You're not running from your emotions, you're befriending them, understanding their language, their rhythm. But this isn't about wallowing, this is about strategy. Each journal entry is a strategic analysis of your internal state. What triggered you today? What patterns are you noticing? Where did you respond with wisdom, and where did you react from fear? You're creating a personal manual of self-understanding. Imagine having a conversation with the most compassionate, honest version of yourself. That's journaling. No judgment, no pretense, just pure, unfiltered exploration. You're developing what psychologists call metacognitive awareness, the ability to observe your own thought processes with curiosity and kindness. The world bombards us with external noise, social media, endless notifications, constant comparison. Journaling is your sanctuary. It's where you recalibrate, where you remember who you are beneath the layers of societal expectations and inherited narratives. Some of the most successful individuals in history, from Leonardo da Vinci to Nelson Mandela, from Maya Angelou to Steve Jobs, maintained rigorous journaling practices. They understood that true innovation, true leadership, comes from deep self-understanding. But here's the radical truth: journaling isn't about producing a perfect document. It's about the process. Some entries will be messy, emotional, seemingly nonsensical. Others will be crystal clear revelations. Both are equally valuable. You're not performing, you're exploring. In a world that constantly demands external performance, journaling is a radical act of internal rebellion. You're saying, my inner world matters. My thoughts have value. My growth is worth documenting. You're becoming both the scientist and the subject of your own extraordinary experiment. Every great journey begins with a single step. Every transformative life begins with a single moment of honest reflection. Your journal is that moment, captured in ink, waiting to unfold the most important story, the story of you becoming. In the silent spaces between our breaths, between the chaos of daily existence, there exists a practice so simple yet so profound that it has the power to reshape entire lives. Journaling, not just a collection of words, but a living, breathing map of human transformation. Picture yourself standing at the edge of your own consciousness. Most people spend their entire lives looking outward, chasing external validation, running from one moment to the next. But the true explorers, the philosophers, the innovators, the deeply self-aware, they turn inward. They understand that the most complex landscape is not found on any geographical map, but within the intricate terrain of human experience. Journaling is not about perfection, it's about permission. Permission to be messy, to be vulnerable, to be completely and utterly human. Every time you put pen to paper, you're conducting an intimate conversation with yourself that no one else will ever hear. It's a sacred dialogue, free from the judgment of the external world. Think about the moments that define us, the heartbreaks, the failures, the unexpected victories. Most people experience these moments and then let them slip away, like water through their fingers. But the journal is a container. It holds these experiences, not to trap them, but to transform them. Each page becomes an alchemical vessel where pain is transmuted into wisdom, confusion into clarity. Neuroscience reveals something extraordinary about this practice. When you journal, you're not just recording memories, you're actively rewiring your brain. The act of writing creates new neural connections, helping you process emotions more effectively. It's like a gym workout for your emotional intelligence, building mental resilience with each word you write. Consider the great minds throughout history: Marcus Aurelius in his military tent, Leonardo da Vinci in his workshop, Maya Angelou in her quiet moments of reflection. They understood that true understanding comes from deep, unfiltered introspection. Their journals were not diaries, but laboratories of human experience. But this isn't some mystical, unreachable practice. Journaling is profoundly practical. It's a tool for decision-making, for understanding your patterns, for catching the subtle narratives that drive your behavior. Every time you write, you're becoming a more conscious version of yourself. Imagine having a conversation with the most honest, compassionate version of yourself. No filters, no social masks, just pure, raw truth. That's what journaling offers. It's a practice of radical self-compassion, where you learn to meet yourself exactly where you are, without judgment. The world will try to define you. Social media, expectations, inherited narratives, they'll all attempt to shape your story. But your journal? That's where you reclaim your narrative. You become the author of your own experience, not just a character in someone else's script. Trauma researchers have discovered something remarkable. Individuals who journal regularly demonstrate increased emotional processing, reduced stress, and greater psychological resilience. It's as if writing becomes a form of emotional surgery, carefully, compassionately examining the wounds of experience and allowing them to heal. This isn't about creating a perfect document. Some entries will be beautiful, some will be a chaotic mess. Some will make you cringe years later. Some will reveal profound insights. Every single one is valuable. You're not performing, you're exploring. In a world that constantly demands external productivity, journaling is a revolutionary act of internal exploration. You're saying that your inner world matters, that your thoughts have value, that your growth is worth documenting. Every transformation begins with a single moment of honest reflection. Your journal is that moment, captured in ink, waiting to unfold the most important story of all. The story of you becoming more fully, more courageously yourself. Close your eyes, take a breath. The blank page awaits, not as a challenge, but as an invitation to meet yourself, to understand yourself, to become more deeply, more authentically alive. 4. Embrace voluntary discomfort. The morning is cold, brutally cold. Marcus shivers as he steps outside his comfortable home, wearing nothing but a thin tunic. The wind cuts through his clothing, each gust a sharp reminder of his deliberate choice. Around him, the world is silent, save for the rustling of bare branches and his own controlled breathing. This is not punishment, this is practice. For centuries, Stoic philosophers understood something profound about human nature: that comfort is a trap, a seductive illusion that weakens the human spirit. Seneca, the Roman statesman and philosopher, would often challenge himself by deliberately experiencing discomfort. He would wear minimal clothing during winter, eat simple meals, sleep on hard surfaces, all to prove to himself that he was more resilient than his physical circumstances. Imagine a warrior preparing for battle, not by sitting in a luxurious tent, but by subjecting himself to grueling training, extreme conditions, pushing his body and mind to their absolute limits. This is the essence of voluntary discomfort, a deliberate practice of experiencing hardship not as a form of self-torture, but as a method of building unbreakable mental fortitude. In our modern world of unprecedented comfort, we've forgotten the strength that emerges from challenge. We've become soft, cushioned by technology, convenience, and instant gratification. Our ancestors knew something we've lost, that true growth happens at the edge of our comfort zone, where challenge meets determination. Epictetus, once a slave who became one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, understood this principle intimately. Having experienced real hardship, he taught that true freedom comes not from avoiding difficulties, but from developing the inner strength to face them without fear. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them, he would say, challenging his students to reframe their perception of discomfort. The practice isn't about creating artificial suffering, it's about systematically exposing yourself to controlled challenges that expand your psychological and physical resilience. A cold shower, a long walk in unfavorable weather, fasting, sleeping on the floor, carrying a heavy load. Each of these experiences is a training ground for the mind. Consider Alexandra, a young entrepreneur who discovered Stoic practices during a period of profound personal crisis. Struggling with anxiety and self-doubt, she began implementing voluntary discomfort into her daily routine. She started taking cold showers, deliberately choosing the most challenging tasks first, and practicing deliberate minimal living. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, her relationship with difficulty began to transform. What started as physical challenges became a profound psychological metamorphosis. She wasn't just enduring discomfort, she was learning to dance with it, to see it as an opportunity rather than an obstacle. Her business grew, not because challenges disappeared, but because she had developed the mental elasticity to navigate them with grace and strategy. The Stoics understood something revolutionary. Comfort is the enemy of growth. Every moment of ease is a moment stolen from your potential. By voluntarily introducing controlled challenges, you're essentially conducting psychological strength training. Just as a muscle grows stronger through resistance, your mind becomes more resilient through purposeful discomfort. This isn't masochism, this is strategy, this is transformation. Imagine a life where challenges don't intimidate you, where uncertainty doesn't paralyze you, where discomfort is seen not as a threat, but as a teacher. This is the promise of voluntary discomfort, a path to psychological freedom that has been understood by philosophers, warriors, and innovators throughout human history. The cold morning continues. Marcus stands there, breathing, conscious, alive. Each shiver is not a signal of weakness, but a testament to his growing strength. He is not a victim of the cold, he is its master. The desert stretches before Eleanor like an endless canvas of golden silence. Her water supply is minimal, her pack heavy, the sun a relentless interrogator burning through her resolve. This is not a vacation. This is not an adventure. This is deliberate transformation. Modern civilization has crafted an elaborate illusion of safety. Comfort has become our default state, a padded cell we've convinced ourselves is freedom. But the Stoics knew better. They understood that true strength is not found in protection, but in exposure, in challenge, in the precise moment where your mind wants to surrender and you choose to continue. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, would have appreciated Elena's journey. Born into a merchant family, Zeno's own transformation began after a shipwreck destroyed everything he owned. Standing on the shores of Athens, having lost his cargo and commercial life, he didn't mourn. Instead, he saw an opportunity, a chance to rebuild, to learn, to grow stronger through loss. This is the radical heart of voluntary discomfort, viewing challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. Each difficult moment is not a punishment, but a training ground for the soul. Eleanor's footsteps leave momentary imprints in the sand, each step a deliberate act of will. She thinks about Musonius Rufus, the Roman Stoic philosopher who believed that true education happens through physical and mental challenges. Rufus would train his students not just through intellectual discourse, but through practical tests of endurance and resilience. The human body is a miraculous adaptation machine. Give it consistent challenges, and it transforms. The same is true for the human spirit. Comfort is a form of slow decay, a quiet erosion of potential. By introducing calculated discomfort, We essentially shock our system into growth. Modern research increasingly validates what ancient philosophers intuitively understood. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire and strengthen itself, is dramatically enhanced through challenging experiences. Each moment of controlled stress creates new neural pathways, building psychological flexibility. But this isn't about suffering for suffering's sake. It's about intentional, strategic exposure to challenges that expand your capacity for resilience. A cold shower, intermittent fasting, carrying a heavy load, sitting with uncomfortable emotions. These are not punishments, but practices. Elena adjusts her pack, feeling its weight not as a burden, but as resistance training for her spirit. She recalls the words of Seneca, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Each step is a declaration, a refusal to be controlled by fear, by comfort, by the endless chatter of a mind seeking the path of least resistance. Indigenous cultures have long understood this principle. Vision quests, wilderness initiations, deliberate exposure to challenging environments. These were not mere rituals, but sophisticated psychological technologies for building human potential. The Stoics were engaged in a similar project, but with a philosophical precision that transformed personal challenge into a systematic approach to living. In our era of unprecedented comfort, we've lost something profound: connection to our own resilience, the knowledge that we are far more capable than our comfort zones suggest. Voluntary discomfort is not about creating artificial suffering, but about reclaiming our innate capacity for adaptation and growth. The desert continues. Elena continues. Her journey is not about reaching a destination, but about the continuous process of becoming, of choosing challenge, of refusing to be limited by fear. Each step is a meditation, each moment of difficulty a teacher. The mountain doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't negotiate. It simply exists, a silent challenge waiting to test the limits of human endurance. Gabriel stands at the base, knowing that every step upward will be a conversation with his own limitations. The alpine wind cuts like a philosophical argument, sharp and uncompromising. This is not a climb, this is a meditation in motion. Ancient Stoic philosophers understood something profound about human potential, that growth happens precisely at the point where comfort ends and challenge begins. They weren't philosophers who merely spoke about resilience. They were practitioners who lived their philosophy through deliberate, challenging experiences. Diogenes, perhaps the most radical of the Stoic practitioners, once lived in a large ceramic jar in the marketplace of Athens. When Alexander the Great approached him and offered to grant any wish, Diogenes simply asked him to step aside, blocking his sunlight. This was not eccentricity. This was a profound statement about human freedom, about refusing to be controlled by social expectations or the desire for comfort. Gabriel's hands are raw, gripping the rocky terrain. Each handhold is a negotiation between muscle, will, and gravity. The mountain doesn't care about his background, his fears, his previous limitations. It offers only one language, the language of persistent effort. Modern society has created an intricate system of comfort that acts like a psychological anesthetic. We're constantly numbed by technology, convenience, instant gratification. But the Stoics knew that true growth happens in the spaces between comfort and challenge, in those moments where your mind wants to surrender and something deeper says, continue. Pain is information. Discomfort is a teacher. Musonius Rufus, the Roman Stoic philosopher, believed that physical training was a direct method of philosophical education. He didn't separate body from mind. They were integrated systems of potential, each capable of extraordinary adaptation when deliberately challenged. Gabriel remembers the stories of mountain guides, of extreme athletes, of soldiers who have transformed their understanding of human potential through deliberate exposure to challenging environments. This isn't about proving something to the world, this is about having an honest conversation with oneself. The higher he climbs, the more the mountain reveals its true nature, not as an obstacle, but as a mirror, reflecting back not just his physical capabilities, but his psychological resilience. Every challenging step is a choice. Every moment of potential surrender is an opportunity to redefine his understanding of limitation. Epictetus would have appreciated this journey. Once a slave, he understood that true freedom is not about external circumstances, but about our internal response to those circumstances. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, he would teach. The mountain is nothing more than a circumstance. The real journey is happening internally. Modern neuroscience is now catching up with ancient philosophical wisdom. Deliberate exposure to controlled stress creates neuroplastic changes, literally rewiring the brain's approach to challenge. Each moment of discomfort is like a sculptor's chisel, slowly revealing the stronger version of oneself hidden beneath layers of comfort and fear. This is not about glorifying suffering. This is about strategic, intentional exposure to challenges that expand human potential. A cold shower, a long walk, carrying a heavy load, sitting with uncomfortable emotions. These are not punishments, but practices of psychological strength training. The summit approaches. But the real summit is not a geographical location, it's a state of being. A way of understanding oneself beyond the artificial limitations created by comfort. Gabriel's breath becomes a rhythm, his heartbeat a drum of persistent effort. The mountain continues its ancient silent conversation. Each step is a choice, each moment a transformation. 5. Respond, don't react. The human mind is a battlefield of emotions, a turbulent landscape where impulse and reason constantly clash. Every moment presents a choice. Will you be a prisoner of your immediate reactions, or will you become the master of your inner world? Imagine Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, sitting in his war tent during a brutal campaign. Around him, chaos erupts. Messengers bring dire news, soldiers argue, tensions run high. But in this maelstrom of potential emotional volatility, he remains a pillar of calm. His breath measured, his thoughts deliberate. While others would explode with anger or crumble under pressure, Aurelius understands a profound truth. The space between stimulus and response is where true human freedom resides. This is not some mystical ability reserved for extraordinary individuals. It is a skill, a discipline that can be cultivated by anyone willing to transform their relationship with their own emotions. The Stoics called this mastery, the art of responding instead of reacting. Consider Elena Rodriguez, an emergency room nurse in a bustling urban hospital. Her shifts are a constant storm of life and death, where split-second decisions can mean the difference between saving a patient or losing them. One particularly challenging night, a distressed family member begins screaming at her, blaming her for their loved one's critical condition. Her heart races, adrenaline surges. Every instinct wants to scream back, to defend herself, to let raw emotion take control. But Elena has studied the ancient wisdom of the Stoics. In that charged moment, she takes a breath. Not just a casual inhale, but a deliberate, conscious pause. She recognizes the family member's pain is not a personal attack, but an expression of profound grief and fear. Her training kicks in, not just medical training, but emotional training. She listens. She responds with compassion, with understanding. This is the essence of Stoic philosophy, understanding that we cannot control external events, but we can always control our internal response. It's a radical concept in a world that celebrates instant gratification and emotional outbursts. Imagine the human mind as a sophisticated computer system. Most people operate like an old machine, prone to crashing at the slightest unexpected input. The Stoic practitioner is like a state-of-the-art system, with advanced firewalls and adaptive algorithms. When an emotional virus attempts to infiltrate, be it anger, fear, or impulsive rage, they have the capacity to analyze, filter, and choose their response. This isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about understanding them. It's about creating a sacred space between what happens to you and how you decide to interpret and engage with it. Every moment becomes an opportunity for growth, for wisdom, for maintaining your inner peace. The great Epictetus, once a slave who became one of the most influential philosophers in history, understood this deeply. It's not what happens to you, he would say, but how you react to it that matters. These weren't just words, they were a revolutionary approach to living. In our modern world of constant stimulation, of social media triggers, and 24-hour news cycles designed to provoke emotional responses, this philosophy is not just relevant, it's essential for survival. We are bombarded with information, with potential sources of stress and anxiety. The ability to pause, to breathe, to choose our response is nothing short of a superpower. Think of a professional negotiator navigating a high-stakes hostage situation, or a diplomat preventing international conflicts, or simply a parent dealing with a teenager's emotional outburst. In each scenario, the difference between escalation and resolution lies in that crucial moment of choice. Training yourself to respond, not react, is like building a muscle. It requires consistent practice, self-reflection, and a commitment to personal growth. It means developing an awareness so acute that you can catch yourself in the split second before an emotional hijacking occurs. This is not about becoming emotionless, it's about becoming emotionally intelligent. It's about recognizing that your first impulse is rarely your best response. It's about understanding that true strength isn't displayed through explosive reactions, but through calm, considered engagement with the world. The Stoics knew what modern neuroscience is now confirming. We have the ability to rewire our brain's default responses. Every time we choose to pause, to breathe, to think before acting, we're creating new neural pathways. We're literally redesigning our internal operating system. Responding, not reacting, is an act of profound self-respect. It's a declaration that you are more than your immediate impulses. You are a thinking, feeling being capable of rising above instinctual triggers. In a world that seems increasingly chaotic, this philosophy offers not just a survival strategy, but a path to genuine peace. A way to move through life with grace, with power, with an unshakable internal stability. The journey of transforming reaction into response is not a destination, but a continuous practice, a daily meditation on human potential. It's a path that demands more than mere intellectual understanding. It requires a radical reimagining of our relationship with our own emotions. Imagine Daniel Chen, a high-stakes Wall Street trader whose entire career balances on the knife's edge of emotional control. Each market fluctuation is a potential emotional trigger. Millions of dollars can evaporate in moments. Careers can crumble with a single miscalculation. Yet Daniel has learned something profound. The most valuable skill in his arsenal is not mathematical precision, but emotional resilience. Every morning, before the market opens, Daniel practices what the Stoics would call negative visualization. He doesn't just prepare for success, he mentally rehearses potential failures. He imagines the worst-case scenarios, market crashes, unexpected losses, public humiliation. But here's the critical difference. He doesn't do this to induce anxiety. He does it to neutralize fear. By confronting these potential disasters in the calm of his morning meditation, Daniel strips them of their emotional power. When actual challenges arise, he's already mapped his potential responses. He's transformed potential emotional landmines into strategic terrain. This is the essence of Stoic emotional training. Not eliminating emotions, but understanding them so deeply that they become tools of insight rather than weapons of self-destruction. Consider the profound complexity of human emotional landscapes. Our brains are ancient machinery, wired for survival in environments vastly different from our current reality. The same neural pathways that once helped our ancestors survive immediate physical threats now fire during social media arguments, workplace conflicts, and personal disagreements. A critical email arrives, your heart rate increases, cortisol floods your system, your primitive brain screams attack or defend. But the Stoic practitioner has learned to create a crucial gap between stimulus and response. In that microsecond of awareness, everything changes. This isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about understanding its mechanics. It's recognizing that emotions are information, not commands. Anger tells you about violated boundaries. Fear highlights potential risks. Sadness signals significant loss. The moment you start viewing emotions as messengers rather than masters, you've begun your journey toward true emotional intelligence. Dr. Sofia Ramirez, a renowned neuropsychologist, has spent decades studying this precise phenomenon. Her research reveals something remarkable. Individuals who consistently practice pause and reflection actually rewire their neural pathways. They develop what she calls emotional plasticity, the ability to navigate complex emotional landscapes with remarkable grace and precision. In her studies, she discovered that this skill isn't just psychological, it's physiological. Regular practice of mindful response actually changes brain chemistry, reducing cortisol levels and increasing neural connectivity in regions responsible for emotional regulation. The ancient Stoics understood this millennia before neuroscience could prove it. They recognized that our perception creates our reality far more than external events. A traffic jam doesn't create stress. Our reaction to the traffic jam creates stress. A critical comment doesn't generate anger. Our interpretation and response generate anger. This is radical personal empowerment. It means acknowledging that while we cannot control external circumstances, we have absolute sovereignty over our internal experience. But make no mistake, this is not a path of passive acceptance. It's a path of active engagement. It requires courage. The courage to sit with uncomfortable emotions. The courage to examine your impulses without judgment. The courage to choose awareness over autopilot. Imagine applying this approach to your most challenging relationships. A partner's hurtful comment that would typically trigger a week-long argument becomes an opportunity for understanding. A colleague's criticism transforms from a personal attack into valuable feedback. Your teenager's emotional outburst becomes a moment of connection rather than conflict. This is emotional martial arts, using the energy of potential conflict to create understanding, to build bridges, to expand consciousness. The Stoics knew what modern psychology is now confirming. True strength is not about suppressing emotion, but about developing such a profound relationship with your inner landscape that no external force can destabilize your core. In a world designed to trigger and manipulate our emotional responses, through media, through technology, through constant stimulation, the ability to pause, to breathe, to choose becomes nothing short of revolutionary. It is an act of radical self-respect, a declaration that you are more complex, more nuanced, more powerful than your immediate emotional impulses. Responding, not reacting, is not just a philosophy. It is an art form, a continuous practice of human potential. The human experience is a complex tapestry of moments, each one a potential battlefield between our primitive emotional impulses and our higher reasoning. But what truly happens inside us during those critical seconds between stimulus and response? Dr. Michael Thompson, a leading researcher in cognitive neuroscience, has spent decades mapping the intricate landscape of human emotional processing. His research reveals a stunning truth. We are not our first emotional reaction. We are the consciousness behind that reaction, a subtle but profound distinction that changes everything. Consider the brain's incredible machinery. The amygdala, our emotional processing center, fires in approximately 12 milliseconds. It's lightning fast, primal, designed for immediate survival. A harsh word, an unexpected sound, a sudden movement, and this ancient part of our brain floods our system with chemicals prepared for fight or flight. Cortisol surges, adrenaline spikes. We're instantly transformed into a reactive state. But here's the miraculous capability of human consciousness. We can interrupt this process. Imagine Alex Rodriguez, a veteran conflict resolution specialist who works in some of the most volatile regions of the world. His work doesn't just require technical skills, it demands absolute emotional mastery. In zones where a misunderstood gesture could escalate into violence, his ability to pause becomes a literal life-saving mechanism. During one particularly tense negotiation in a conflict-ridden region, Alex found himself face-to-face with a group of local leaders, each carrying generations of hurt, mistrust, and potential violence. One elder made a comment that in any other context would be perceived as a direct insult, a trigger that could destroy months of careful diplomatic work. But Alex had trained himself to see beyond the immediate emotional landscape. He recognized the comment not as a personal attack, but as an expression of deep historical pain. Instead of defending, instead of counterattacking, he listened, truly listened. This is the profound art of response, seeing beyond the surface, understanding the deeper currents that drive human behavior. Neurologically, what Alex demonstrated is a complex dance between different brain regions. While the amygdala provides the immediate emotional impulse, the prefrontal cortex, our center of higher reasoning, has the capacity to evaluate, to contextualize, to choose. It's like having a sophisticated operating system that can override default programming. The Stoic philosophers understood this millennia before modern neuroscience could map it. Seneca spoke of this ability as the truest form of freedom, the freedom to choose our internal response to external circumstances. But this is not a passive skill. It's an active practice that requires continuous cultivation. Like any muscle, our capacity for mindful response can be strengthened, refined, developed. Consider the practice of meditation, not as some mystical ritual, but as a practical training ground for emotional regulation. When you sit in meditation, you're essentially practicing the art of pause. You observe thoughts and emotions without immediately acting on them. You create space between stimulus and response. This is not about becoming emotionless, it's about becoming emotionally intelligent. Sarah Jenkins, a former combat medic, learned this principle in the most extreme circumstances imaginable. In the chaos of battlefield medicine, where split-second decisions determine life and death, emotional reactivity could be fatal. She discovered that her most powerful tool wasn't her medical training. It was her ability to remain calm, to assess, to respond rather than react. Years after leaving active service, Sarah now trains emergency response teams. Her core message is always the same: your internal state determines your external effectiveness. In our modern world, saturated with information, with constant stimulation, with triggers designed to provoke immediate emotional responses, this skill becomes nothing short of essential. Social media algorithms are crafted to trigger our most reactive selves. News cycles are designed to keep us in a state of perpetual emotional agitation. Marketing constantly attempts to bypass our reasoning and target our impulses. Responding, not reacting, becomes an act of personal sovereignty. It means recognizing that you are not a victim of your circumstances, but the author of your experience. It means understanding that between every external event and your internal experience, there exists a sacred space of choice. This is not a philosophy of detachment, it is a philosophy of profound engagement. A commitment to seeing the world not as something that happens to you, but as a continuous invitation to grow, to understand, to expand your consciousness. The art of response is the art of human potential, a continuous journey of awakening. Every relationship is a crucible of emotional intelligence, a living laboratory where our capacity to respond, rather than react, is tested moment by moment. Consider the marriage of Elena and Carlos Martinez, two professionals who discovered the transformative power of Stoic principles in the most intimate arena of human experience: their relationship. For years, they were trapped in a cycle of reactive communication, each argument a battlefield of wounded egos, each misunderstanding a potential breaking point. The turning point came unexpectedly. During a particularly heated discussion about Carlos's work commitments, Elena realized something profound. Her immediate impulse was to attack, to defend, to prove her point. But what if she could see beyond the surface? What if the argument wasn't about time or commitment, but about something deeper? This moment of insight didn't come from willpower, but from a radical act of empathy. She paused, she breathed, she listened, not just to Carlos's words, but to the emotions beneath them. Carlos wasn't just talking about work. He was expressing his deep-seated fear of not being enough, of failing his family, of not meeting the impossible standards he'd set for himself. The Stoics understood a fundamental truth about human connection. Most conflicts are never about the surface issue. They're about unspoken fears, unhealed wounds, unexpressed vulnerabilities. Dr. Rebecca Chen, a renowned relationship therapist, has spent decades studying the mechanics of human connection. Her research reveals a startling statistic. Over 70% of relationship conflicts are not resolved through argumentation, but through understanding. The moment you shift from reacting to responding, she explains, you transform the entire relational dynamic. This is not some theoretical concept. It's a practical skill that can be learned, practiced, cultivated. Take the workplace, another intense arena of human interaction. James Liu, a senior executive at a global tech company, transformed his leadership approach by embracing this principle. In an industry known for high-stress environments and ego-driven conflicts, he became known for something remarkable. his ability to create space in moments of tension. During a critical product launch meeting, when a junior team member made a presentation filled with apparent mistakes, the old James would have publicly dismantled the presentation. Embarrassed, the team member asserted his authority. Instead, he paused. He asked questions. He created a space for learning rather than judgment. The result? The team member, instead of becoming defensive, became more innovative, more willing to take risks, more committed to the company's mission. This is the radical power of response. It's about recognizing that every interaction is an opportunity for growth, every conflict a potential moment of deeper understanding. The ancient Stoics didn't see emotional mastery as a form of suppression. They saw it as a form of profound engagement with human experience. Marcus Aurelius didn't write about eliminating emotions. He wrote about understanding them, about using them as sources of insight rather than sources of destruction. Our emotions are not our enemies. They are messengers. Anger tells us about violated boundaries. Sadness signals significant loss. Fear highlights potential risks. The moment we start viewing emotions as information rather than commands, everything changes. But make no mistake, this is not a passive path. It requires incredible courage. The courage to sit with uncomfortable emotions. The courage to be vulnerable. The courage to choose understanding over being right. In a world that constantly encourages immediate reaction, through social media, through 24-hour news cycles, through a culture of instant gratification, the ability to pause becomes nothing short of revolutionary. It is an act of radical self-respect, a declaration that you are more complex, more nuanced, more powerful than your immediate emotional impulses. Responding, not reacting, is a continuous practice of human potential, a moment-by-moment choice to engage with life not as a series of threats to be defended against, but as a continuous invitation to grow, to understand, to expand our consciousness. Every breath is an opportunity, every interaction a chance to choose. Imagine a world where leaders, diplomats, and ordinary citizens possessed the capacity to pause before responding. A world where emotional intelligence wasn't just a buzzword, but a fundamental approach to human interaction. The global landscape is a complex ecosystem of potential conflicts, cultural misunderstandings, historical tensions, ideological differences. Yet the most powerful weapon for resolution isn't found in diplomatic treaties or strategic negotiations. It's found in the human capacity to respond, not react. Dr. Amara Okonkwo, a conflict resolution expert who has worked in some of the most volatile regions on the planet, understands this principle intimately. Her work doesn't just involve negotiating peace, it involves rewiring human emotional patterns at their most fundamental level. During a particularly challenging mediation in a region torn apart by generational conflict, she encountered a moment that would define her entire approach. Two community leaders, representing deeply opposing factions, entered the room with centuries of inherited hatred in their eyes. Years of violence, of loss, of unprocessed trauma separated them. The conventional approach would be to immediately start discussing terms, arguing points, trying to find immediate resolution. But Dr. Okonkwo knew better. She created a space, not of negotiation, but of listening. For hours, she guided these leaders not to debate, but to understand, to hear the stories beneath the conflict, the personal losses, the inherited pain, the human experiences that existed beyond political narratives. This is emotional diplomacy. This is the art of response taken to its most profound level. Neurologically, what occurs in such moments is nothing short of miraculous. When we truly listen, not to respond but to understand, our brain chemistry changes. Oxytocin, the hormone associated with empathy and connection, begins to flow. Mirror neurons activate. We literally begin to neurologically sync with the experience of another human being. The Stoic philosophers understood something revolutionary, that our perception creates our reality far more than external events. A conflict is not inherent in the event itself, but in how we choose to interpret and engage with that event. Consider the remarkable transformation of Rwanda. A nation that experienced one of the most devastating genocides in human history has become a global model of reconciliation. Not through punishment, not through forgetting, but through a radical commitment to understanding. Survivors and perpetrators of violence sat together, they listened, they acknowledged pain, they chose response over reaction. This is not soft diplomacy. This is the hardest, most courageous form of human engagement. In our current global landscape, where technology allows instantaneous communication, where cultural misunderstandings can escalate in milliseconds, the ability to pause becomes nothing short of essential for human survival. Social media platforms are designed to trigger our most reactive selves. News cycles thrive on emotional escalation. Political systems often reward inflammatory rhetoric over nuanced understanding. But beneath this chaos, a profound human potential exists. The potential to see beyond the immediate, to understand the deeper currents that drive human behavior. Dr. James Peterson, a researcher in global conflict studies, has mapped how emotional regulation at individual and collective levels can literally prevent large-scale conflicts. His research shows that societies that prioritize emotional intelligence in education, in leadership training, in conflict resolution, demonstrate significantly lower levels of violence. This is not a philosophical abstraction. This is a practical approach to human survival. Every moment of pause is a moment of potential transformation. Every breath an opportunity to choose understanding over immediate reaction. Responding, not reacting, becomes a revolutionary act. A commitment to seeing the complexity of human experience. A declaration that we are capable of something more profound than our initial emotional impulses. We are not victims of our circumstances. We are architects of our collective human experience. 6. Practice gratitude. In the soft light of dawn, where silence whispers ancient wisdom, our journey into the heart of gratitude begins. Imagine a world where every breath, every moment, every seemingly insignificant experience becomes a profound source of appreciation. This is the transformative power of gratitude, a practice so simple yet so revolutionary that it can completely reshape our perception of existence. The Stoic philosophers understood something profound that our modern, hyper-connected world has forgotten. True wealth is not measured by possessions, but by our capacity to appreciate what we already have. Picture Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the vast Roman Empire, sitting in his quiet moments, not reflecting on his immense power, but on the fundamental gifts of being alive. He would write in his private meditations about the miracle of consciousness, the extraordinary fact that we exist at all in this vast, mysterious universe. Gratitude is not a passive emotion. It is an active practice, a deliberate way of seeing the world that requires constant cultivation. When a Stoic wakes in the morning, they do not immediately reach for their smartphone or worry about the day's challenges. Instead, they pause, they breathe. They recognize the fundamental gift of another day, a day not guaranteed to anyone. Consider the morning ritual of acknowledging the most basic elements of existence: the warmth of your bed, the oxygen filling your lungs, the fact that your heart beats without your conscious command. These are not trivial matters, but profound miracles that we habitually overlook. The Stoics would argue that our inability to appreciate these fundamental experiences is a form of spiritual poverty. Epictetus, once a slave who became one of the most influential philosophers in human history, taught that our reaction to events matters infinitely more than the events themselves. Imagine being enslaved, stripped of your physical freedom, yet finding the inner strength to be grateful. Not for the circumstances, but for the opportunity to develop resilience, to maintain your inner dignity, to choose your response. Practicing gratitude is like training a muscle. It requires consistent effort, intentionality, and a willingness to shift perspective. When confronted with a challenging situation, the Stoic does not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" but instead reflects, "What can I learn from this? How can this experience contribute to my growth?" This is not toxic positivity or naive optimism. This is a clear-eyed, courageous approach to life that acknowledges difficulties while refusing to be defined by them. Imagine losing a job, experiencing a personal setback, or facing a health challenge. The Stoic perspective does not deny the pain, but transforms it into an opportunity for deeper understanding and personal evolution. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, would often recommend a nightly practice of reflection. Before sleep, he would review his day, not with harsh self-criticism, but with compassionate awareness. What went well? What challenges did he navigate? What unexpected moments of beauty did he encounter? This practice of evening gratitude was not about perfection, but about continuous, gentle improvement. In our contemporary world of constant distraction and manufactured desires, practicing gratitude becomes a radical act of rebellion. It is a conscious choice to step off the hedonic treadmill, that endless cycle of wanting more, believing that the next possession, achievement, or relationship will finally bring satisfaction. The Stoics understood that satisfaction is an internal state, not an external condition. Imagine walking through a bustling city, surrounded by advertisements promising happiness through consumption, and instead choosing to be grateful for the intricate dance of human interaction. The barista preparing your coffee, the street musician creating spontaneous art, the child laughing in a nearby park. These are not background noise, but miracles waiting to be appreciated. Gratitude is not about ignoring life's challenges or pretending that everything is perfect. It is about developing the philosophical muscles to see beyond immediate circumstances. It is about recognizing that even in moments of profound difficulty, there are lessons, there is beauty, there is an opportunity for growth. The practice of gratitude is ultimately a practice of freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of constant wanting. Freedom from the illusion that happiness is something to be acquired rather than something to be experienced. Freedom to see the extraordinary in the ordinary, the miraculous in the mundane. As the day progresses, as challenges arise, as moments of joy and sorrow interweave, remember, gratitude is not a destination, it is a journey. A continuous, courageous choice to see the world not as it seems, but as it truly is. A profound, interconnected miracle of which you are an integral part. The universe breathes in silent complexity, and within its vast indifference, human consciousness emerges as a fleeting yet profound miracle. Gratitude is not a simple emotion, but a sophisticated philosophical practice that transforms how we perceive our existence. Imagine standing at the edge of understanding, where each moment becomes a canvas of infinite possibility. The ancient Stoics understood something revolutionary. Our perception creates our reality more definitively than external circumstances ever could. When Epictetus, born a slave and rising to become one of history's most profound philosophers, spoke about gratitude, he wasn't discussing a passive sentiment. He was describing a radical act of psychological alchemy, the ability to transmute suffering into understanding, pain into wisdom. Consider the most challenging moment of your life. The Stoic approach doesn't suggest suppressing pain or manufacturing artificial happiness. Instead, it offers something far more powerful, the ability to extract meaning from difficulty. Gratitude becomes not about denying struggle, but about recognizing the extraordinary resilience of human consciousness. Every morning presents a fundamental choice. We can approach the day as a burden to be endured or as an unexpected gift. The Stoics would wake before dawn, their first moments dedicated to profound appreciation, not of grand achievements or material possessions, but of the most fundamental experiences. Breath, consciousness, the simple miracle of being alive in this intricate cosmic dance. Imagine stripping away the layers of societal expectation, consumer-driven desires, and psychological conditioning. What remains is a pure, unfiltered experience of existence, the warmth of sunlight, the complex rhythm of your heartbeat, the extraordinary fact that consciousness itself exists in a universe of infinite possibilities. Gratitude is not about perpetual positivity. It is a sophisticated philosophical stance that acknowledges the full spectrum of human experience. When Marcus Aurelius lost multiple children, when he managed a crumbling empire while personally confronting immense personal tragedy, he did not collapse into despair. Instead, he developed a perspective that could hold both profound suffering and deep appreciation simultaneously. Modern neuroscience increasingly validates what Stoic philosophers understood centuries ago. Gratitude is not a passive emotion, but an active neurological practice. Each moment of genuine appreciation rewires our brain, creating new neural pathways that enhance resilience, reduce stress, and fundamentally alter our perception of reality. Picture a life where challenges are not obstacles, but opportunities for growth, where loss becomes a teacher, where uncertainty is not something to be feared, but a space of infinite potential. This is the essence of Stoic gratitude, a dynamic, courageous approach to living that transforms vulnerability into strength. The practice is intricate and demanding. It requires us to develop what the Stoics called prosos, a profound attention to the present moment, not as a meditative escape, but as a radical form of engagement with life. Each breath becomes a meditation, each interaction an opportunity for deeper understanding. Seneca would often recommend a nightly practice of reflection, not as a form of self-judgment, but as a compassionate review of the day's experiences. What moments of unexpected beauty emerged? What challenges revealed your inner strength? Where did you find connection, meaning, growth? In a world constantly pushing us toward future achievements and material acquisitions, gratitude becomes a revolutionary act of resistance. It is choosing to recognize abundance where consumer culture demands perpetual lack. It is understanding that true wealth is not measured by external possessions, but by the depth of our capacity to appreciate. Our modern technological world offers unprecedented connectivity, yet paradoxically creates profound disconnection. Gratitude becomes a bridge, connecting us not just to our immediate experience, but to the vast, interconnected nature of existence. Each moment becomes a thread in an infinite tapestry, each experience a unique expression of cosmic complexity. The most profound gratitude often emerges from our most challenging experiences, a period of financial struggle that reveals the depth of human connection, a personal failure that becomes a transformative learning experience, an illness that makes us appreciate the extraordinary complexity of human health. As you move through your day, remember, gratitude is not a destination. It is a continuous journey of philosophical exploration. It is a commitment to seeing the world not as it appears, but as it truly is, a profound, mysterious, interconnected miracle of which you are an integral part. In the silent spaces between breaths, between thoughts, between heartbeats, gratitude reveals itself not as a simple emotion, but as a profound philosophical practice that transforms human experience. Imagine standing at the precipice of understanding, where each moment becomes a gateway to deeper wisdom, each experience a teacher waiting to be heard. The human condition is a delicate balance of vulnerability and resilience. From the moment we draw our first breath to the final exhale, we are constantly negotiating between what we can control and what remains beyond our influence. The Stoics understood this fundamental truth with a clarity that cuts through centuries of human complexity. Picture Diogenes living with nothing more than a simple cloak and a wooden bowl, laughing at the elaborate possessions of those who believed wealth could purchase happiness. His gratitude was not about accumulation, but about liberation. Freedom from the endless cycle of wanting, from the illusion that external circumstances define our worth. Gratitude emerges in the most unexpected moments. When everything seems to be falling apart, when the world reveals its brutal indifference, there is a profound opportunity to practice a radical form of appreciation. It is not about finding happiness in suffering, but about finding meaning in the experience of being fully alive. Consider the human body, a universe of miraculous complexity, millions of cellular interactions happening each second, a symphony of biological precision that requires no conscious command. Your heart beats, your lungs expand and contract, neurons fire with intricate precision, and most of the time, we remain completely unaware of this constant miracle. The practice of gratitude is not about forced positivity or spiritual bypassing. It is a courageous act of facing reality exactly as it is. When Marcus Aurelius confronted the devastating losses of his children, the constant challenges of managing a crumbling Roman Empire, he did not retreat into bitterness. Instead, he developed a philosophical perspective that could hold both profound suffering and deep appreciation. Imagine stripping away the layers of societal expectation, the constant bombardment of messages that tell you you are not enough, that you must acquire more, that happiness is a destination to be reached rather than a way of moving through the world. Gratitude becomes a revolutionary act of resistance against this manufactured discontent. Seneca would spend days living with minimal resources, not as a form of punishment, but as a profound meditation on human adaptability. By understanding how little we actually need to survive, we unlock a deeper well of appreciation for the comforts we typically take for granted. A warm meal, a moment of quiet, the simple ability to breathe. Our modern scientific understanding increasingly validates what philosophers understood centuries ago. Gratitude is not just a nice sentiment, it is a powerful psychological tool that fundamentally alters our neurological pathways. Each moment of genuine appreciation rewires our brain, creating new neural connections that enhance resilience, reduce stress, and transform our perception of reality. Think about impermanence, the fundamental understanding that nothing remains constant. The coffee you drink, the conversation you share, the breath you take, none of these are guaranteed. Gratitude emerges when we truly internalize this understanding, not as a theoretical concept, but as a lived experience. The most profound appreciation often emerges from our most challenging experiences, a period of financial struggle that reveals the depth of human connection, a personal failure that becomes a transformative learning experience, an illness that makes us appreciate the extraordinary complexity of human health. As the day unfolds, as challenges arise, as moments of joy and sorrow interweave, remember, gratitude is not a destination. It is a continuous journey of philosophical exploration, a commitment to seeing the world not as it appears, but as it truly is, a profound, mysterious, interconnected miracle of which you are an integral part. This is the essence of Stoic gratitude, not a passive acceptance, but an active, courageous engagement with the full spectrum of human experience, a practice that transforms vulnerability into strength, uncertainty into opportunity, and each moment into a profound teaching. 7. Meditate on mortality. The night is impossibly dark. A lone figure stands at the edge of a windswept cliff, silhouetted against the faintest glimmer of moonlight. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, closes his eyes and breathes deeply. The weight of an entire empire rests on his shoulders, yet in this moment he is acutely aware of something far more profound: his own mortality. Wind whips across the rocky landscape, carrying with it the whispers of generations past. Philosophers, warriors, kings, all have stood where Marcus stands now, confronting the ultimate truth that binds humanity together. Death, the great equalizer, the moment that transforms emperors into dust and reduces the mightiest of civilizations to forgotten memories. Elena Rodriguez, a trauma surgeon in a bustling metropolitan hospital, understands this truth intimately. Her hands, steady and precise, have danced along the razor's edge between life and death countless times. She remembers her first patient who died under her care, a young motorcycle rider, barely 25, whose life evaporated in moments despite her most heroic efforts. "We're all just passing through," she often tells her medical students. "Every breath is a borrowed moment, every heartbeat a temporary gift." In the bustling markets of ancient Athens, Epictetus, once a slave, now a renowned philosopher, would walk among the merchants and travelers, whispering a simple yet profound truth. Begin each day by telling yourself, "Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." But why? Why confront such uncomfortable realities? Deep in the mountains of Japan, Hiroshi Nakamura, a Zen Buddhist monk in his 70s, tends to his small garden. Each carefully placed stone, each meticulously pruned branch, represents a meditation on impermanence. His weathered hands move with a grace that speaks of decades of contemplation. To truly live, Hiroshi explains to a young apprentice, one must first make peace with dying. The Roman legions understood this principle intrinsically. Before every battle, soldiers would rehearse their own potential death, not out of fear, but as a method of liberation. By confronting the worst possible outcome, they stripped away fear and found clarity, courage, purpose. Sarah Thompson, a quantum physicist in Cambridge, sees similar principles in her work with subatomic particles. "Everything is in constant transformation," she notes, her eyes bright with intellectual passion. "Matter never truly dies, it simply changes form. Why should human consciousness be any different?" Marcus Aurelius would write in his private journals, never meant for publication, words that would centuries later become a beacon for millions. "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Imagine a world where every person lived with this awareness, where each conversation might be the last, where each moment is treated as a precious, unrepeatable gift, where grudges dissolve, petty arguments seem meaningless, and genuine connection becomes the highest priority. In the emergency room of a war-torn hospital in Damascus, Dr. Khalid Abbas moves between patients with a fluid grace. Bombs occasionally thunder in the distance. Here, mortality isn't an abstract philosophical concept, it's a constant companion. Yet Khalid chooses compassion. Each life he saves is a defiant act against the randomness of existence. The Stoics didn't view mortality as a curse, but as the very thing that gives life its profound meaning. Without the certainty of an end, would we truly appreciate the beauty of our journey? As the first rays of dawn break across the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose, we are reminded we are here, we are alive. And in this moment, that is everything. The operating room is a universe of controlled chaos. Dr. Amara Collins stands perfectly still, her hands hovering above a patient whose life hangs by the most delicate of threads. 30 years of surgical experience have taught her that life is not a guaranteed state, but a continuous negotiation. Thousands of miles away, in a small coastal town in Portugal, João Mendes mends fishing nets. His hands are weathered maps of resilience, each line a story of survival. He lost his entire family in a single night. A tragic fishing accident that claimed everyone except him. Now he understands something profound about survival and loss. "We are all just moments away from everything changing," João whispers to the incoming tide. In the high-altitude research station of the Andes, Dr. Elena Rodriguez tracks climate patterns. Her work is more than scientific observation, it's a meditation on the fragility of existence. Each glacier that retreats, each ecosystem that transforms, is a reminder of the impermanence of all things. Trauma surgeon, fisherman, climate scientist, each profession a lens through which mortality reveals itself. In a veterans rehabilitation center in California, Samuel Green learns to walk again. A roadside bomb in Afghanistan took his legs, but not his spirit. His rehabilitation is more than physical. It's a daily negotiation with the boundary between life and potential death. Every step is a victory, Samuel tells the young veterans he now mentors. Every breath a defiance. The human body is a marvel of improbability. Approximately 300 billion cells die in your body every day. Yet you remain. Alive, changing, transforming. In Tokyo, Akiko Tanaka runs a small hospice. She has witnessed more than 1,000 people in their final moments. Not with sadness, but with a profound reverence. Each death is a sacred transition. Each last breath a profound communication with the universe. "We are not afraid of dying," Akiko explains to her staff. "We are afraid of not having lived." Quantum physicists understand this intrinsically. At the subatomic level, particles exist in states of probability. They are everywhere and nowhere until observed. Life, in its most fundamental form, is a continuous state of potential. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, a theoretical physicist in New Mexico, spends his days exploring these boundaries. His research bridges the gap between quantum mechanics and human consciousness, seeking to understand the very nature of existence. "We are not solid," he often says. "We are a complex dance of energy and possibility." In the remote mountains of Nepal, a Buddhist monk named Tenzin practices a meditation that has been passed down through generations. He sits in total stillness, breathing in sync with the mountain winds. Death is not an end for him, but a transition, a doorway between known and unknown states of being. The human heart beats approximately 100,000 times each day. Each beat is a miracle, each pulse a defiance against the infinite complexity of existence. Sarah Williams, a palliative care nurse in Dublin, has held more hands during final moments than most people will touch in a lifetime. She understands that death is not the opposite of life, but a part of its continuous rhythm. "We are all temporary," Sarah tells her patients, "and that is what makes us beautiful." The lighthouse stands sentinel on the rocky Maine coastline. Emma Blackwood has lived here her entire life, watching generations pass like the endless waves below. Her grandfather built this lighthouse, her father maintained it, and now she guards its beacon, a metaphor for human existence itself. In a small clinic in rural Nigeria, Dr. Chidi Okonkwo moves between patients with a grace born of decades of medical practice. He has delivered hundreds of babies and held the hands of countless souls during their final moments. Life and death are not opposing forces for him, but a continuous, sacred dance. Thousands of miles away, in the high-altitude research stations of Chile's Atacama Desert, astronomers track the birth and death of stars. Each pinprick of light represents millions of years of cosmic transformation, a reminder that our own existence is but a momentary flicker in the universe's grand narrative. Layla Hassan, a grief counselor in Beirut, understands mortality through the stories of those left behind. She has listened to thousands of narratives of loss, of survival, of profound human resilience. Each story a testament to our capacity to continue, to rebuild, to find meaning in the face of inevitable loss. The human body contains approximately 37.2 trillion cells. Every single day, millions die and are replaced. We are constantly in a state of dying and being reborn, most of us entirely unaware of this continuous metamorphosis happening within our own skin. In the mountains of Nepal, an elderly Buddhist monk named Tenzin sits in perfect stillness. He has spent decades practicing a meditation that directly confronts the nature of existence. His breath moves in harmony with the mountain winds, a living embodiment of the principle that we are not separate from the world. We are the world experiencing itself. Marcus Rodriguez, a quantum physicist in New Mexico, sees mortality through the lens of subatomic possibility. We are not solid, he explains to his research team. We are a complex dance of energy, constantly transforming, constantly becoming. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, Maria Conceição, an indigenous healer, understands death not as an ending, but as a transformation. Her community has preserved wisdom that modern societies have forgotten, that life and death are not binary states, but a continuous cycle of being. In a veterans rehabilitation center in Chicago, Samuel Green rebuilds his life after losing both legs in combat. Each step is a negotiation with mortality, each moment a defiance against limitation. We are not defined by what we lose, he tells other veterans, but by how we choose to live in the aftermath. The human heart beats approximately 100,000 times each day. Each pulse a miracle, each moment a negotiation between possibility and limitation. Dr. Amara Collins, a trauma surgeon in London, moves through her world with a profound awareness of life's fragility. She has witnessed the most extraordinary moments of human survival and the most heartbreaking instances of loss. Her hands have danced along the razor's edge between life and death countless times. Akiko Tanaka runs a small hospice in Tokyo. She has accompanied hundreds of individuals through their final moments, not with sadness, but with a profound reverence. Each death is a sacred transition, each last breath a communication with the infinite. The operating room is a universe of controlled silence. Dr. Rafael Morales stands absolutely still, his hands suspended above a patient whose life balances on the most delicate of threads. 32 years of surgical experience have taught him that life is not a possession, but a momentary grace. In the windswept plains of Mongolia, Bayama Enk tends to her family's nomadic herd. Her grandfather's weathered hands guide her own, passing down generations of survival wisdom. Here, death is not feared, but understood as a natural progression of existence. Across the world in Cape Town, Professor Diana Wilmot studies the intricate patterns of human memory. Her research reveals something profound. Our memories are not fixed recordings, but living, breathing entities that transform with each remembrance. We are constantly rewriting our own narratives. In a small hospice in Kyoto, Hiroko Tanaka has perfected the art of accompaniment. She has sat with over 500 individuals during their final moments, not as a medical professional, but as a compassionate witness to the most intimate human transition. The human body contains approximately 30 trillion cells. Every single moment, millions die and are replaced. We are a continuous storm of creation and dissolution, most of us entirely unaware of this miraculous transformation happening within our own skin. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, Carlos Rodriguez, an indigenous healer, understands mortality as a conversation, not a confrontation, not a fear, but a dialogue between what is seen and unseen. Each breath a negotiation, each moment a bridge between worlds. Dr. Elena Rodriguez tracks climate patterns from a high-altitude research station in the Andes. Her work is more than scientific observation. It's a meditation on the impermanence of all systems. Glaciers retreat, ecosystems transform, entire landscapes dissolve and rebuild themselves. In a veterans rehabilitation center in Seattle, Michael Chang learns to walk again. A roadside explosion in Afghanistan took his legs but not his spirit. His rehabilitation is a daily negotiation with the boundary between survival and potential loss. Quantum physicists have discovered something remarkable. At the subatomic level, particles exist in states of pure potential. They are everywhere and nowhere until observed. Life, in its most fundamental form, is a continuous state of becoming. Sarah Williams, a palliative care nurse in Dublin, has held more hands during final moments than most people will touch in a lifetime. She understands that death is not the opposite of life, but a part of its continuous rhythm. "We are all temporary," Sarah tells her patients, "and that is what makes us beautiful." In the mountains of Tibet, a monk named Tenzin sits in perfect stillness. His meditation is not an escape from life, but a profound engagement with its most fundamental mystery. Each breath an exploration, each moment a universe of potential. Abdelkader, an elderly Tuareg nomad, repairs a worn leather bag in the heart of the Sahara. His movements are slow, deliberate, each gesture a testament to survival. He has buried children, survived droughts that erased entire communities, witnessed landscapes transform beyond recognition. 8. Be virtuous, not popular. In the fading light of ancient Athens, a solitary figure walks along the marble columns, his weathered sandals echoing against the stone. Marcus Aurelius, philosopher, emperor, and perhaps the most powerful man in the known world, carries not a sword of conquest, but a weight far more profound: the unshakable commitment to personal virtue. Imagine a world where your worth is not measured by the thunderous applause of crowds, but by the quiet whispers of your own integrity. Where popularity is a fleeting shadow, and virtue is an eternal flame burning within your soul. This is the radical philosophy of Stoicism, a transformative way of seeing the world that challenges everything our modern society holds dear. Epictetus, once a slave, later a revered philosopher, understood this principle with remarkable clarity. Born into chains, he discovered that true freedom was not granted by social status or public acclaim, but by the immutable strength of one's character. While others sought fame, he sought wisdom. While others craved the temporary validation of the masses, he cultivated an inner resilience that no external force could ever diminish. Consider Cato the Younger, a Roman statesman who stood alone against the political corruption of his time. When everyone else compromised, when every path seemed to lead toward personal advantage, Cato remained unbending. He knew that sacrificing one's principles for momentary popularity was a form of spiritual bankruptcy. His contemporaries might have whispered, might have criticized, but history would remember him not for his popularity, but for his unwavering moral courage. The Stoic path is not for the faint of heart. It demands a radical reimagining of success. In a world obsessed with likes, shares, and public perception, the Stoic philosopher turns inward. Success is not about how many people know your name, but about how deeply you understand yourself. It's about cultivating virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. Seneca, the Roman statesman and philosopher, understood this profound truth. Despite being one of the wealthiest men in Rome, he preached detachment from material wealth and social status. What is more shameful, he would ask, to be praised by the crowd or to deserve their praise? For Seneca, the applause of the masses was a meaningless distraction from the real work of personal growth. Imagine standing at a crossroads. On one path, you have instant gratification, social validation, the warm but ultimately hollow comfort of being liked. On the other, a more challenging journey of constant self-improvement, of making choices that align with your deepest values, even when, especially when, those choices are unpopular. This is not about being contrarian or deliberately going against the grain. It's about having the courage to live authentically, to make choices based on principles rather than popularity. It's about understanding that true influence comes not from manipulating public opinion, but from embodying principles so powerfully that they inspire others through example. The modern world constantly tempts us to compromise. Social media creates an illusion of connection while promoting a culture of superficial validation. We are encouraged to curate personas, to present polished versions of ourselves that will attract the most attention. The Stoics would see this as a profound self-deception, a way of losing ourselves in the expectations of others. But virtue requires something different. It requires courage, the courage to be misunderstood, the courage to stand alone, the courage to prioritize inner growth over external validation. When Marcus Aurelius wrote in his personal journals, never intended for public consumption, he was engaging in the most radical act of self-reflection. He wasn't performing for an audience. He was having an honest conversation with himself. In our age of continuous noise and constant distraction, the Stoic philosophy offers a revolutionary approach. Be virtuous, not popular. Create depth instead of breadth. Build character instead of cultivating a persona. Choose principles over praise. Understand that true respect is earned through consistent integrity, not through momentary popularity. The path of virtue is solitary but profound. It requires constant vigilance, continuous self-examination, and the willingness to make difficult choices. But for those who dare to walk this path, the reward is immeasurable. A life of genuine meaning, of authentic power, of unshakable inner peace. In a world that constantly asks you to change, to conform, to perform, the Stoic invitation is simple yet revolutionary. Stay true to yourself, be virtuous, and let popularity be a distant, unimportant concern. The night was cold, the streets of Alexandria empty save for the flickering of oil lamps. Hypatia, the brilliant mathematician and philosopher, sat surrounded by scrolls and instruments, her mind far more illuminated than the dim room around her. She knew something that most of her contemporaries had forgotten: that true power lies not in the roar of the crowd, but in the silent strength of one's convictions. In a world constantly screaming for attention, where social validation has become the primary currency of human worth, the ancient Stoic philosophy emerges as a quiet rebellion. It whispers a radical truth. Your character is not defined by how many people know your name, but by the depth of your integrity when no one is watching. Think of Diogenes, the philosopher who lived in a ceramic jar, who owned nothing but a simple cloak and a walking stick. When Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the known world, approached him and offered to grant any wish, Diogenes simply asked him to move slightly, as he was blocking the sunlight. In that moment, he demonstrated a profound truth. No external power, no matter how grand, could compromise his inner freedom. The path of virtue is not about being perfect, it's about being honest. It's about having the courage to look at yourself without the flattering filters of social approval. Each day is an opportunity to choose. Will you perform for the world, or will you work on yourself? Will you chase the temporary high of popularity, or will you invest in the lasting wealth of character? Modern society has created an intricate machine of validation. Social media platforms, influencer cultures, viral trends, all designed to make us believe that our worth is measured by external metrics: likes, shares, comments, followers. The Stoics would look at this elaborate performance and see nothing but an elaborate distraction from true personal growth. Consider Cleanthes, who worked as a water carrier while studying philosophy. By day, he carried heavy water tanks to earn a meager living. By night, he would study and write, developing philosophical ideas that would influence generations. He didn't seek recognition, he sought understanding. His commitment was to knowledge, not fame. Popularity is a fickle friend. It shifts with trends, bends with public opinion, disappears when convenience demands. Virtue, on the other hand, is a constant companion. It doesn't abandon you when times get tough. It doesn't require constant maintenance or performance. It simply exists, steady and uncompromising. The Stoic approach to life is not about rejection of the world, but about a profound engagement with it. It's about understanding that your primary responsibility is not to impress others, but to continuously improve yourself. Every challenge is an opportunity. Every criticism is a chance for reflection. Every moment is a classroom for personal growth. Imagine standing at the edge of a moral decision. On one side, the easy path of conformity, of doing what everyone expects, of maintaining your social standing. On the other, the challenging path of integrity, of making the difficult choice that aligns with your deepest principles. The Stoics didn't just imagine this moment, they lived it. They understood that true influence is not about controlling others, but about having such profound inner clarity that your very existence becomes a form of quiet leadership. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. Your actions, your consistency, your unwavering commitment to your principles, these speak far louder than any speech or performance. In our age of instant gratification and surface-level connections, the Stoic philosophy offers a revolutionary alternative. It says, invest in yourself, build resilience, cultivate wisdom, develop compassion. These are the true measures of a life well lived. Popularity is temporary, virtue is eternal. The world will always have room for those brave enough to choose depth over breadth. Subster, the wind howled across the Roman frontier, carrying with it the dust of countless battles and the whispers of unsung heroism. Here, far from the marble halls of Rome, a different kind of strength was being forged, not in the roar of conquests, but in the quiet resolve of individual character. Marcus Aurelius understood this truth better than most. A Roman consul captured by the Carthaginians during the First Punic War, he was offered a chance at freedom, a return to comfort, a restoration of his popularity. All he had to do was betray his principles. All he had to do was compromise. But compromise was a language he refused to speak. The Carthaginians believed they were offering Regulus a gift. They would release him, allow him to return to Rome, and negotiate a prisoner exchange that would benefit their cause. They knew he was respected, influential, a man whose words carried weight in the Roman Senate. Surely he would argue for their interests. What they didn't understand was the depth of Stoic integrity. Regulus did something extraordinary. After being released to deliver the Carthaginian proposals, he went to Rome not to persuade the Senate to accept the terms, but to urge them to reject them. He knew his advice would mean certain death upon his return to Carthage. Popularity meant nothing. Principle meant everything. When he returned to Carthaginian captivity, knowing his fate was sealed, he walked with the same dignity he had maintained throughout his capture. Torture awaited him. Certain death was his reward for maintaining his integrity. The Carthaginians, enraged by his defiance, executed him in a manner so brutal that it became legendary, a testament to a spirit that could not be broken. This is the heart of Stoic philosophy, a radical commitment to virtue that transcends personal comfort, social approval, or even survival. In a world that constantly demands performance, that rewards shallow conformity, the Stoic stands as a beacon of unwavering principle. Popularity is a mask, a temporary illusion that shifts with every passing trend. Virtue is the foundational bedrock of human dignity. Consider the women and men throughout history who chose principle over popularity. Think of the whistleblowers who risked everything to expose corruption, the scientists who defended unpopular truths, the activists who stood alone against overwhelming societal pressure. They were not seeking applause, they were serving something greater than themselves. The modern world is a complex theater of validation. Social media creates an illusion of connection while promoting a culture of superficial performance. We curate personas, craft carefully constructed images, chase viral moments. The Stoics would see this as the most profound form of self-deception, a way of losing ourselves in the expectations of others. True strength is not measured by how many people know your name, but by the integrity you maintain when no one is watching. It's about the choices you make when convenience beckons, when compromise seems easier. It's about understanding that your character is not a performance, but a constant evolving commitment. Popularity is a currency that constantly devalues. One moment you're celebrated, the next forgotten. Virtue, however, compounds. It grows, it transforms. It becomes a legacy that outlives momentary acclaim. The Stoic path is not about being perfect. It's about being honest. It's about having the courage to look at yourself without the flattering filters of social approval. Each day becomes an opportunity, Will you perform for the world, or will you work on yourself? Regulus knew this. So did countless others who chose principle over popularity. They understood that true freedom is not granted by social status or public acclaim, but by the immutable strength of one's character. In a world that constantly asks you to change, to conform, to perform, the Stoic invitation remains simple yet revolutionary. Stay true to yourself. Be virtuous. Let popularity be a distant, unimportant concern. Your integrity is your most valuable possession. Guard it. Nurture it. Let it be the compass that guides you through the noise and chaos of human existence. Ence over style, inner peace over public perception. The choice, as always, remains yours. In the quiet moments between heartbeats, between breaths, between the cacophony of human ambition, there exists a profound truth that most people never understand. Popularity is a shadow. Virtue is the substance. Zhang Xun stood on the city walls of Beijing, watching the world he knew crumble around him. It was 1900, during the Boxer Rebellion, and he represented something far more powerful than the shifting political winds. He represented an unbreakable commitment to principle. While others were choosing sides, aligning themselves with whatever faction promised the most protection or potential reward, Zhang remained committed to a higher calling. He understood that true leadership is not about being liked, but about maintaining integrity when every possible path offers compromise. The world is a complex machinery of expectations. Social validation has become a currency more precious to most than gold, more addictive than any substance. We curate our lives like art exhibitions, presenting carefully constructed narratives designed to attract approval, to generate likes, to create the illusion of connection. But the Stoics knew something profound. Real power is not external. It is not found in the applause of crowds or the validation of strangers. Real power resides in the quiet, unshakable core of individual character. Imagine a life where your primary commitment is not to be understood, but to understand. Not to be popular, but to be principled. Not to conform, but to grow. This is the revolutionary path of Stoic philosophy. Every moment is a crossroads, every interaction an opportunity to choose. Will you compromise your integrity for momentary comfort, or will you stand firm in your principles? Will you be a performance or a presence? Zhang Xun's life was not about grand gestures or heroic proclamations. It was about consistent, unwavering commitment. When the world around him was fracturing, when loyalty seemed like a commodity to be traded, he remained a beacon of integrity. The Stoic does not seek to be a martyr. The Stoic seeks to be authentic, to live in such a way that your actions are an unbroken conversation with your deepest values. This is not about perfection. This is about honest, continuous effort. Popularity is a mirage. It shifts with the winds of public opinion, changes with trends, disappears when inconvenient. Virtue is a mountain, immovable, constant, providing perspective to those willing to climb its challenging paths. In our age of instant communication, of viral moments and fleeting fame, the Stoic philosophy offers a radical alternative. It says, your worth is not determined by how many people know your name, but by the depth of your commitment to growth. Think of the scientists who defended unpopular truths, the philosophers who questioned established narratives, the individuals who stood alone, not for recognition, but because their principles demanded nothing less. They were not seeking applause. They were serving something greater than themselves. Character is not built in moments of comfort. It is forged in the fires of challenge, in the moments when compromise seems the easiest path. It is constructed through daily choices, through the thousands of small decisions that most people never notice. Zhang Xun understood this. He knew that integrity is not a destination, but a continuous journey. A commitment so profound that it transcends personal comfort, social approval, even survival. The world will always have room for those brave enough to choose depth over breadth, substance over style, inner peace over public perception. Those who understand that true influence is not about controlling others, but about having such profound inner clarity that your very existence becomes a form of quiet leadership. In the crushing darkness of a Siberian labor camp, amid the frozen winds and broken spirits of political exiles, one man discovered a truth more powerful than any prison walls. Alexander Solzhenitsyn understood that true freedom is not granted by governments or crowds, but cultivated in the unbreakable landscape of personal integrity. Imagine a world where your worth is measured not by the volume of your applause, but by the quietness of your conviction, where popularity is a passing breeze and character is the immovable mountain. This is the heart of Stoic philosophy, a radical commitment to inner truth that defies every social mechanism designed to break the human spirit. The modern world is an elaborate stage, carefully constructed to reward performance over substance. Social media platforms have become digital colosseums where we gladiators fight not with weapons, but with carefully curated images, with likes and shares becoming our currency of validation. But the Stoics would look at this spectacle and see nothing more than an elaborate distraction from genuine personal growth. Solzhenitsyn knew something profound. During years of imprisonment, stripped of everything, his freedom, his status, his very identity, he discovered that the only thing no one could take from him was his ability to choose his response. While others around him broke under the pressure, he wrote, while others surrendered their dignity, he maintained his principles. Consider the extraordinary courage required to stand alone, not for the sake of being different, but for the sake of truth. Not to provoke, but to protect something far more important than personal comfort. Integrity. Popularity is a fickle lover. It arrives with fanfare, demands constant attention, and disappears the moment challenge arrives. Virtue, however, is a lifelong companion. It doesn't require maintenance. It simply exists, steady and uncompromising, a quiet strength that illuminates everything it touches. The Stoic path is not about rejection, but about profound engagement. Every challenge becomes an opportunity. Every criticism, a moment of reflection. Every difficulty, a chance to demonstrate the depth of one's character. When Solzhenitsyn was finally released, when he could have sought revenge or wallowed in bitterness, he chose something more powerful. He chose to understand, to write, to bear witness. Not for fame, not for popularity, but because his principles demanded nothing less. Our culture constantly tempts us to compromise, to smooth our edges, to perform rather than to be. Social algorithms are designed to reward conformity, to push us toward whatever generates the most immediate response. The Stoics offer a different path, a path of inner authenticity. Imagine standing at the edge of a moral decision. On one side, the comfortable path of least resistance. On the other, the challenging path of integrity. The path that asks something of you. The path that requires courage. True influence is not about controlling others or generating applause. It's about having such profound inner clarity that your very existence becomes a form of quiet leadership. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. Your actions, your consistency, your unwavering commitment, these speak far louder than any performance. In an age of instant gratification, the Stoic philosophy remains a revolutionary alternative. It says, invest in yourself, build resilience, cultivate wisdom, develop compassion. These are the true measures of a life well lived. In the silent spaces between breaths, in the moments when no one is watching, true character is revealed. Far from the thunderous applause of crowds, beyond the flickering screens of social validation, there exists a profound truth that most people never comprehend. Your worth is not determined by how many people know your name, but by the depth of your commitment to your principles. Eleanor Roosevelt understood this truth long before it became a fashionable philosophy. While the world around her demanded performance, she chose something far more radical: authenticity. Imagine a life not curated for external approval, but crafted with internal integrity. A life where your primary conversation is not with the shifting winds of public opinion, but with the immutable core of your own values. This is the essence of Stoic philosophy, a quiet rebellion against the noise of modern existence. The world is an intricate machinery of expectations. Social media platforms have become digital colosseums where we perform elaborate versions of ourselves, where validation is measured in likes, shares, and momentary attention. But beneath this performance lies a fundamental question: who are you when no one is watching? Eleanor Roosevelt didn't seek popularity, she sought impact. While other women of her social standing were content to remain decorative figures in the background of history, she transformed herself into a force of moral leadership. She understood that true influence is not about controlling narratives, but about having such profound inner clarity that your very existence becomes a form of quiet leadership. Every moment is a crossroads. Every interaction an opportunity to choose. Will you compromise your integrity for momentary comfort, or will you stand firm in your principles? Will you be a performance or a presence? Consider the extraordinary courage required to stand alone, not for the sake of being different, but for the sake of truth, not to provoke, but to protect something far more important than personal comfort, human dignity. Popularity is a mirage. It shifts with trends, bends with public opinion, disappears when inconvenient. Virtue, however, is a mountain, immovable, constant, providing perspective to those willing to climb its challenging paths. In a world that constantly demands you change, conform, perform, the Stoic philosophy offers a revolutionary alternative. It says, invest in yourself, build resilience, cultivate wisdom, develop compassion. These are the true measures of a life well lived. Eleanor Roosevelt didn't seek the spotlight, she sought to create light. When racism was entrenched, she championed civil rights. When women were marginalized, she amplified their voices. When the world seemed determined to remain silent, she spoke. Character is not built in moments of comfort. It is forged in the fires of challenge, in the moments when compromise seems the easiest path. It is constructed through daily choices, through the thousands of small decisions that most people never notice. The modern world is an elaborate theater of validation. We curate personas, craft carefully constructed images, chase viral moments. The Stoics would see this as the most profound form of self-deception, a way of losing ourselves in the expectations of others. True strength is not measured by how many people know your name, but by the integrity you maintain when no one is watching. It's about the choices you make when convenience beckons, when the world offers you an easy escape from your principles. Popularity is a currency that constantly devalues. One moment you're celebrated, the next forgotten. Virtue, however, compounds. It grows, it transforms. It becomes a legacy that outlives momentary acclaim. The path of integrity is not about being perfect, it's about being honest. It's about having the courage to look at yourself without the flattering filters of social approval. Each day becomes an opportunity. Will you perform for the world, or will you work on yourself? Regulus knew this. So did countless others who chose principle over popularity. They understood that true freedom is not granted by social status or public acclaim, but by the immutable strength of one's character. In a world that constantly asks you to change, to conform, to perform, the Stoic invitation remains simple, yet revolutionary. Stay true to yourself. Be virtuous. Let popularity be a distant, unimportant concern. Your integrity is your most valuable possession. Guard it, nurture it. Let it be the compass that guides you through the noise and chaos of human existence. Ents over style, inner peace over public perception. The choice, as always, remains yours. In the quiet moments between heartbeats, between breaths, between the cacophony of human ambition, there exists a profound truth that most people never understand. Popularity is a shadow. Virtue is the substance. Zhang Xun stood on the city walls of Beijing, watching the world he knew crumble around him. It was 1900 during the Boxer Rebellion, and he represented something far more powerful than the shifting political winds. He represented an unbreakable commitment to principle. While others were choosing sides, aligning themselves with whatever faction promised the most protection or potential reward, Zhang remained committed to a higher calling. He understood that true leadership is not about being liked, but about maintaining integrity when every possible path offers compromise. The world is a complex machinery of expectations. Social validation has become a currency more precious to most than gold, more addictive than any substance. We curate our lives like art exhibitions, presenting carefully constructed narratives designed to attract approval, to generate likes, to create the illusion of connection. But the Stoics knew something profound. Real power is not external. It is not found in the applause of crowds or the validation of strangers. Real power resides in the quiet, unshakable core of individual character. Imagine a life where your primary commitment is not to be understood, but to understand. Not to be popular, but to be principled. Not to conform, but to grow. This is the revolutionary path of Stoic philosophy. Every moment is a crossroads, every interaction an opportunity to choose. Will you compromise your integrity for momentary comfort, or will you stand firm in your principles? Will you be a performance or a presence? Zhang Xun's life was not about grand gestures or heroic proclamations. It was about consistent, unwavering commitment. When the world around him was fracturing, when loyalty seemed like a commodity to be traded, he remained a beacon of integrity. The Stoic does not seek to be a martyr. The Stoic seeks to be authentic, to live in such a way that your actions are an unbroken conversation with your deepest values. This is not about perfection. This is about honest, continuous effort. Popularity is a mirage. It shifts with the winds of public opinion, changes with trends, disappears when inconvenient. Virtue is a mountain, immovable, constant, providing perspective to those willing to climb its challenging paths. In our age of instant communication, of viral moments and fleeting fame, the Stoic philosophy offers a radical alternative. It says, your worth is not determined by how many people know your name, but by the depth of your commitment to growth. Think of the scientists who defended unpopular truths, the philosophers who questioned established narratives, the individuals who stood alone, not for recognition, but because their principles demanded nothing less. They were not seeking applause. They were serving something greater than themselves. Character is not built in moments of comfort. It is forged in the fires of challenge, in the moments when compromise seems the easiest path. It is constructed through daily choices, through the thousands of small decisions that most people never notice. Zhang Xun understood this. He knew that integrity is not a destination, but a continuous journey, a commitment so profound that it transcends personal comfort, social approval, even survival. The world will always have room for those brave enough to choose depth over breadth, substance over style, inner peace over public perception. Those who understand that true influence is not about controlling others, but about having such profound inner clarity that your very existence becomes a form of quiet leadership. In the crushing darkness of a Siberian labor camp, amid the frozen winds and broken spirits of political exiles, one man discovered a truth more powerful than any prison walls. Alexander Solzhenitsyn understood that true freedom is not granted by governments or crowds, but cultivated in the unbreakable landscape of personal integrity. Imagine a world where your worth is measured not by the volume of your applause, but by the quietness of your conviction, where popularity is a passing breeze and character is the immovable mountain. This is the heart of Stoic philosophy, a radical commitment to inner truth that defies every social mechanism designed to break the human spirit. The modern world is an elaborate stage, carefully constructed to reward performance over substance. Social media platforms have become digital colosseums, where we gladiators fight not with weapons, but with carefully curated images, with likes and shares becoming our currency of validation. But the Stoics would look at this spectacle and see nothing more than an elaborate distraction from genuine personal growth. Solzhenitsyn knew something profound. During years of imprisonment, stripped of everything, his freedom, his status, his very identity, he discovered that the only thing no one could take from him was his ability to choose his response. While others around him broke under the pressure, he wrote, while others surrendered their dignity, he maintained his principles. Consider the extraordinary courage required to stand alone, not for the sake of being different, but for the sake of truth, not to provoke, but to protect something far more important than personal comfort, integrity. Popularity is a fickle lover. It arrives with fanfare, demands constant attention, and disappears the moment challenge arrives. Virtue, however, is a lifelong companion. It doesn't require maintenance. It simply exists, steady and uncompromising, a quiet strength that illuminates everything it touches. The Stoic path is not about rejection, but about profound engagement. Every challenge becomes an opportunity. Every criticism, a moment of reflection. Every difficulty, a chance to demonstrate the depth of one's character. When Solzhenitsyn was finally released, when he could have sought revenge or wallowed in bitterness, he chose something more powerful. He chose to understand. to write, to bear witness. Not for fame, not for popularity, but because his principles demanded nothing less. Our culture constantly tempts us to compromise, to smooth our edges, to perform rather than to be. Social algorithms are designed to reward conformity, to push us toward whatever generates the most immediate response. The Stoics offer a different path, a path of inner authenticity. Imagine standing at the edge of a moral decision. On one side, the comfortable path of least resistance. On the other, the challenging path of integrity, the path that asks something of you, the path that requires courage. True influence is not about controlling others or generating applause. It's about having such profound inner clarity that your very existence becomes a form of quiet leadership. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth, your actions, your consistency, your unwavering commitment. These speak far louder than any performance. In an age of instant gratification, the Stoic philosophy remains a revolutionary alternative. It says, invest in yourself, build resilience, cultivate wisdom, develop compassion. These are the true measures of a life well lived. In the silent spaces between breaths, in the moments when no one is watching, true character is revealed. Far from the thunderous applause of crowds, beyond the flickering screens of social validation, there exists a profound truth that most people never comprehend. Your worth is not determined by how many people know your name, but by the depth of your commitment to your principles. Eleanor Roosevelt understood this truth long before it became a fashionable philosophy. While the world around her demanded performance, she chose something far more radical: authenticity. Imagine a life not curated for external approval, but crafted with internal integrity. A life where your primary conversation is not with the shifting winds of public opinion, but with the immutable core of your own values. This is the essence of Stoic philosophy, a quiet rebellion against the noise of modern existence. The world is an intricate machinery of expectations. Social media platforms have become digital colosseums where we perform elaborate versions of ourselves, where validation is measured in likes, shares, and momentary attention. But beneath this performance lies a fundamental question: who are you when no one is watching? Eleanor Roosevelt didn't seek popularity, she sought impact. While other women of her social standing were content to remain decorative figures in the background of history, she transformed herself into a force of moral leadership. She understood that true influence is not about controlling narratives, but about having such profound inner clarity that your very existence becomes a form of quiet leadership. Every moment is a crossroads, every interaction an opportunity to choose. Will you compromise your integrity for momentary comfort, or will you stand firm in your principles? Will you be a performance or a presence? Consider the extraordinary courage required to stand alone, not for the sake of being different, but for the sake of truth. Not to provoke, but to protect something far more important than personal comfort: human dignity. Popularity is a mirage. It shifts with trends, bends with public opinion, disappears when inconvenient. Virtue, however, is a mountain, immovable, constant, providing perspective to those willing to climb its challenging paths. In a world that constantly demands you change, conform, perform, the Stoic philosophy offers a revolutionary alternative. It says, invest in yourself, build resilience, cultivate wisdom, develop compassion. These are the true measures of a life well lived. Eleanor Roosevelt didn't seek the spotlight. She sought to create light. When racism was entrenched, she championed civil rights. When women were marginalized, she amplified their voices. When the world seemed determined to remain silent, she spoke. Character is not built in moments of comfort. It is forged in the fires of challenge, in the moments when compromise seems the easiest path. It is constructed through daily choices, through the thousands of small decisions that most people never notice. The modern world is an elaborate theater of validation. We curate personas, craft carefully constructed images, chase viral moments. The Stoics would see this as the most profound form of self-deception, a way of losing ourselves in the expectations of others. True strength is not measured by how many people know your name, but by the integrity you maintain when no one is watching. It's about the choices you make when convenience beckons, when the world offers you an easy escape from your principles. Popularity is a currency that constantly devalues. One moment you're celebrated, the next forgotten. Virtue, however, compounds. It grows, it transforms, it becomes a legacy that outlives momentary acclaim. The path of integrity is not about being perfect. It's about being honest. It's about having the courage to look at yourself without the flattering filters of social approval. Each day becomes an opportunity. Will you perform for the world, or will you work on yourself? In the bitter cold of a Manchurian prison camp, a man discovered something more powerful than walls, more enduring than suffering. Lieutenant Dieter Dengler understood that true freedom was not about physical escape, but about the unbreakable landscape of human dignity. Freedom is an interior condition. It exists not in the absence of constraints, but in the presence of uncompromising integrity. During the Vietnam War, when many would have broken under the weight of torture, isolation, and hopelessness, Dengler did something extraordinary. He refused to be defined by his circumstances. While his captors believed they could crush his spirit, he transformed imprisonment into a profound act of resistance. The world offers 1,000 ways to compromise, 1,000 moments where giving up seems easier than standing firm. But the Stoic path is not about avoiding difficulty. It is about transforming difficulty into an opportunity for growth. Imagine a life where your primary commitment is not to be understood, but to understand. Not to be popular, but to be principled. Not to conform, but to grow. This is the revolutionary promise of Stoic philosophy. Popularity is a performance, virtue is a presence. Modern culture has created an elaborate machinery of validation. Social media platforms transform human connection into a competition of curated images. We craft personas, chase viral moments, reduce our complex human experience into digestible content. The Stoics would see this as the most profound form of self-deception, a way of losing ourselves in the expectations of others. Dengler's survival was not about physical endurance alone. It was about something more profound, an unbreakable commitment to his own humanity. When others around him surrendered, when hope seemed like a distant memory, he maintained an interior landscape of resilience. Every moment is a crossroads, every interaction an opportunity to choose. Will you compromise your integrity for momentary comfort, or will you stand firm in your principles? Will you be a performance or a presence? True strength is not measured by how many people know your name, but by the integrity you maintain when no one is watching. It's about the choices you make when convenience beckons, when the world offers you an easy escape from your principles. Popularity is a currency that constantly devalues. One moment you're celebrated, the next forgotten. Virtue, however, compounds. It grows, it transforms, it becomes a legacy that outlives momentary acclaim. The Stoic does not seek to be a martyr. The Stoic seeks to be authentic, to live in such a way that your actions are an unbroken conversation with your deepest values. This is not about perfection. This is about honest, continuous effort. Consider the extraordinary courage required to stand alone, not for the sake of being different, but for the sake of truth, not to provoke, but to protect something far more important than personal comfort, human dignity. When Dengler was finally freed, when he could have been consumed by bitterness or trauma, he chose something more powerful. He chose to understand, to live, to transform his suffering into a testament of human resilience. In an age of instant gratification, the Stoic philosophy remains a revolutionary alternative. It says, invest in yourself, build resilience, cultivate wisdom, develop compassion. These are the true measures of a life well lived. Your character is not a performance. It is a continuous, unfolding story of integrity. The world will always have room for those brave enough to choose depth over breadth, substance over style, inner peace over public perception. Those who understand that true influence is not about controlling others, but about having such profound inner clarity that your very existence becomes a form of quiet leadership. In the relentless chaos of human existence, there exists a quiet revolution. A revolution not fought with weapons, but with unwavering principles. A revolution that begins in the most profound battlefield, the human heart. Sophie Scholl understood this truth before most people comprehend what true courage means. Standing in a Nazi courtroom, facing certain death, she represented something far more powerful than her fragile physical form. She embodied the unbreakable spirit of human integrity. The White Rose resistance movement was not about grand gestures or heroic proclamations. It was about something far more radical, telling the truth when silence seemed safer. When an entire nation had chosen compliance over conscience, Sophie and her brother Hans chose something extraordinary: moral resistance. Imagine a life where your primary currency is not popularity, but principle. Where your worth is not measured by the applause of crowds, but by the depth of your commitment to human dignity. This is the essence of Stoic philosophy, a profound understanding that true strength resides not in external validation, but in inner conviction. Our modern world is an elaborate theater of performance. Social media platforms have transformed human connection into a competitive landscape of curated images and momentary attention. We craft personas, chase viral moments, reduce our complex human experience into algorithmically digestible content. The Stoics would see this as the most profound form of self-deception, a way of losing ourselves in the expectations of others. But Sophie Scholl knew something more profound. When the world around her had gone mad with ideology and conformity, she understood that resistance begins with a single act of truth. Her leaflets were not just pieces of paper. They were moral declarations, small acts of rebellion that carried the weight of human conscience. Every moment is a crossroads, every interaction an opportunity to choose. Will you compromise your integrity for momentary comfort, or will you stand firm in your principles? Will you be a performance or a presence? Popularity is a whisper. Virtue is a thunderous declaration of human potential. When the Nazi court sentenced her to death, Sophie did not beg. She did not compromise. She stood as a testament to something greater than survival. She stood for the fundamental dignity of human choice. Her last words before execution were a profound declaration of resistance. How can we expect righteousness to prevail when there is hardly anyone willing to give himself up individually to a righteous cause? The Stoic path is not about rejection, but about profound engagement. Every challenge becomes an opportunity, every criticism a moment of reflection, every difficulty a chance to demonstrate the depth of one's character. True influence is not about controlling others or generating applause. It's about having such profound inner clarity that your very existence becomes a form of quiet leadership. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. Your actions, your consistency, your unwavering commitment, these speak far louder than any performance. In an age of instant gratification, the Stoic philosophy remains a revolutionary alternative. It says, invest in yourself, build resilience, cultivate wisdom, develop compassion. These are the true measures of a life well lived. Character is not built in moments of comfort. It is forged in the fires of challenge, in the moments when compromise seems the easiest path. It is constructed through daily choices, through the thousands of small decisions that most people never notice. Sophie Scholl did not seek to be a hero. She sought to be human, to maintain her dignity in a system designed to strip away individual conscience. Her resistance was not about being different. It was about being true. 9. Limit material attachments. The cemetery is silent but profoundly eloquent. Row after row of identical headstones stand as the ultimate equalizer, a landscape where the most expensive suit and the simplest garment decompose exactly the same. Here lies the ultimate lesson of material detachment. In the end, nothing we accumulate survives us except the impact we've made on the world and the lives we've touched. Dr. Michael Reyes understands this better than most. A renowned cardiac surgeon who once chased the trappings of success, the luxury car, the penthouse overlooking downtown Chicago, the designer wardrobe, he experienced a transformative moment during a critical surgery. As he worked to save a homeless patient, he realized the absurdity of his previous life's priorities. The watch on his wrist, worth more than the patient's entire life savings, suddenly felt like a grotesque ornament of meaninglessness. In the narrow streets of Kyoto, an elderly craftsman named Hiroshi meticulously repairs a centuries-old tea bowl. Each careful movement speaks of a philosophy far more profound than mere possession. The ceramic piece, cracked and mended multiple times, tells a story of resilience, of finding beauty in imperfection, of valuing something not for its pristine condition, but for its journey. The ancient Stoic philosophers were not ascetics. They did not preach complete renunciation, but rather a radical reimagining of value. Seneca would walk through the markets of Rome, surrounded by exotic goods and lavish displays of wealth, understanding that true richness resided in one's capacity for reason, for compassion, for inner tranquility. Consider the modern digital nomads, those wandering souls who carry their entire life in a backpack. Not from poverty, but from a deliberate choice to prioritize experience over ownership. Sarah Rodriguez, a software engineer, has lived in 17 countries over the past 5 years. Her possessions fit into a single carry-on bag, yet her life brims with richness, connections across continents, experiences that have transformed her understanding of humanity. Material detachment is not about living with nothing. It's about living with intention. Every object in your environment should either serve a clear purpose or bring genuine joy. Not the manufactured joy of marketing campaigns, but a deep, resonant satisfaction that connects to your core values. In the mountains of Peru, indigenous communities have maintained this wisdom for generations. Their homes are sparse, their possessions minimal, yet their community is rich with connection, with storytelling, with a profound understanding of their place in the larger ecosystem. They do not own the land, they belong to it. The psychological weight of possessions is often invisible until it's lifted. Emma Thompson, a psychologist specializing in minimalism and mental health, has observed how her clients experience a radical transformation when they begin to detach from material accumulation. Anxiety reduces, creativity increases, relationships become more authentic. The constant background noise of want and lack diminishes. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, would have understood this intrinsically. Shipwrecked and losing everything he owned, he did not see disaster but opportunity. From that moment of total loss emerged a philosophical framework that would influence centuries of human thought. A testament to the truth that our internal resources are infinitely more valuable than our external acquisitions. The modern world bombards us with messages of scarcity and desire. Advertisements whisper that happiness is always one purchase away. Social media transforms consumption into a performative art. But the Stoic understands a deeper truth. The more you own, the more owned you become. Imagine wealth not as a collection of objects, but as a reservoir of experiences, of wisdom, of meaningful relationships. Imagine freedom not as the ability to buy anything, but as the ability to be content with what you have. Imagine power not as control over things, but as control over your perceptions, your reactions, your inner world. Material detachment is not deprivation, it is liberation. It is choosing depth over breadth, meaning over acquisition, presence over possession. It is understanding that the most valuable real estate is not measured in square feet, but in the landscape of your consciousness. As night falls and the world of commerce slowly quiets, ask yourself, what am I carrying that no longer serves me? What possessions have possessed me? What can I release to make space for what truly matters? The journey of detachment is not a destination. It is a continuous practice of seeing clearly, of choosing wisely, of living fully. The sound of a single coin dropping echoes through an empty room. A metaphor, perhaps, for the hollow nature of material accumulation. We chase wealth, collect possessions, build monuments to our desires, only to discover that true richness exists somewhere else entirely. Alexander Korloff remembers the moment everything changed. A successful investment banker in Moscow, he had constructed a life of apparent perfection. A penthouse overlooking the city, a collection of rare watches that cost more than most people's annual salary, custom-tailored suits from Milan. But perfection is a fragile construct. The unraveling began on an ordinary Tuesday. His most expensive watch, a limited edition timepiece that had cost more than a small apartment, slipped from his wrist and shattered on the marble floor. In that moment of crystalline clarity, he understood the profound emptiness of his accumulated wealth. The watch, a symbol of status and achievement, became nothing more than scattered fragments of glass and metal. Stoic philosophers understood this truth millennia ago. Possessions are not inherent sources of happiness, but potential sources of anxiety. Each object we own requires maintenance, generates fear of loss, creates invisible psychological chains that bind us more tightly than we recognize. In the remote highlands of Mongolia, a nomadic herder named Bayar Ma moves her entire household, her entire life, across vast landscapes. Her possessions fit onto 2 pack horses, essential cooking tools, warm clothing, a few treasured family items. Her wealth is measured not in objects, but in survival skills, in community connections, in her intimate understanding of the land. The modern world is a labyrinth of manufactured desire. Marketing algorithms track our every click, our every hesitation, constructing personalized narratives of lack. You need this, you deserve that. Happiness is always one purchase away. But the Stoics would recognize this as an elaborate illusion, a complex mechanism designed to keep humans perpetually dissatisfied. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a behavioral economist in Barcelona, has dedicated her research to understanding consumer psychology. Her groundbreaking studies reveal a startling truth. Increased material possession correlates directly with increased anxiety and decreased life satisfaction. The more we own, the more we fear losing what we've accumulated. Consider the Japanese concept of mono no aware, the gentle sadness inherent in understanding the transient nature of things. It's not a philosophy of despair, but of profound appreciation. Every object is temporary. Every possession is merely a momentary custodian of our attention. In Silicon Valley, tech entrepreneur James Wu transformed his entire business model after a personal revelation. Once focused on creating luxury consumer products, he now develops technology that helps people reduce their material footprint. His latest app allows users to track not their purchases, but the psychological weight of their possessions. The Stoic path is not about deprivation, it's about deliberate choice. It's understanding that every object you bring into your life is a commitment of space, of energy, of attention. What are you willing to sacrifice for that next acquisition? What internal resources are you depleting to maintain external appearances? Sophia Nakamura walks this path with intention. A minimalist architect in Tokyo, she designs living spaces that challenge traditional notions of ownership. Her own home contains fewer than 100 personal items, each carefully selected, each serving a clear purpose. Her wealth is in her creativity, her relationships, her ability to move through the world with profound flexibility. Material freedom is not about having nothing. It's about having exactly what you need, and nothing more. It's about creating space, physical space in your environment, mental space in your consciousness, emotional space in your relationships. The Roman philosopher Seneca would often practice voluntary discomfort. He would deliberately wear simple clothing, eat basic meals, sleep on hard surfaces, not to punish himself, but to prove that happiness is not dependent on external comfort. He wanted to demonstrate the human spirit's fundamental resilience. As global systems become more complex, as climate change challenges our traditional models of consumption, the Stoic philosophy of material detachment becomes not just a philosophical choice, but a practical necessity. We are entering an era where adaptability, not accumulation, will define human success. Imagine wealth not as a collection of objects, but as a reservoir of experiences. Imagine freedom not as the ability to buy anything, but as the ability to be content with what you have. Imagine power not as control over things, but as control over your perceptions, your reactions, your inner world. The coin continues to echo, a reminder, a challenge, an invitation to reimagine what truly matters. The warehouse is cavernous, filled with abandoned dreams, rows of forgotten possessions, pristine exercise equipment, untouched hobby kits, designer clothes with tags still attached. Each item tells a story of human desire, of momentary passion quickly cooled, of the endless cycle of acquisition and abandonment. Gabriel Rodriguez walks slowly through this landscape of unfulfilled potential. As the director of a large recycling and donation center in Phoenix, he has become an unintentional philosopher of material attachment. Every object here represents a moment of hope, a belief that this thing, whatever it might be, would transform a life, would fill some undefined emptiness. In the ancient world, philosophers understood something profound about human desire. Epictetus, once a slave, later a revered thinker, would have recognized this warehouse as a perfect metaphor for human suffering. We chase external solutions to internal challenges, believing that the next purchase will silence the quiet desperation that lives within us. Across the world, in a small apartment in Mumbai, Priya Sharma sorts through her grandmother's belongings. Each item is a memory, a connection to a life lived with intention. A simple cotton sari, mended countless times, a brass cooking pot blackened by decades of use, a collection of handwritten recipes. These are not possessions, they are stories, they are history. The Stoic understanding of material attachment goes far beyond simple minimalism. It's a radical reimagining of value. What if we measured wealth not by what we accumulate, but by what we can comfortably release? What if freedom was defined by our ability to walk away, to remain unshaken by loss? Dr. Marcus Chen, a neuropsychologist specializing in consumer behavior, has dedicated his career to understanding the psychological mechanisms of attachment. His research reveals a startling truth. Our brains are literally wired to create emotional connections with objects. Each possession becomes an extension of our identity, a physical manifestation of our perceived self. But the Stoics offer a different path. Imagine walking through the world with the understanding that nothing truly belongs to you. Not your car, not your house, not even your own body. Everything is temporary. Everything is on loan. In the mountains of New Zealand, a community of environmental researchers lives this philosophy. Their research station is a model of intentional living. Every object carefully selected, every resource mindfully used. Solar panels, rainwater collection systems, communal living spaces that challenge traditional notions of ownership. Sarah Blackwood, the lead researcher, explains their approach. "We're not trying to live with nothing," she says, her eyes scanning the minimalist living space. "We're trying to live with exactly what we need, and nothing more. Each object is a tool, not a treasure." The modern world is a complex machine designed to generate want. Algorithms track our desires, create personalized narratives of lack. You are one purchase away from happiness, one object away from completion. The advertising industry is a sophisticated mechanism of psychological manipulation, transforming human desire into a renewable resource. But what if we could break free? In Tokyo, Hiroshi Tanaka transformed his life after a near-fatal illness. Once a high-powered corporate executive surrounded by luxury, he now lives in a 250-square-foot apartment. Every item he owns serves a clear purpose. His wardrobe consists of 5 identical black shirts. His kitchen contains precisely the tools needed to prepare meals for himself. "I thought happiness was about accumulation," he reflects. "Now I understand it's about subtraction." The Stoic path is not about deprivation, it's about liberation. It's about understanding that your worth is not determined by what you own, but by your capacity for wisdom, for compassion, for meaningful action. Imagine wealth as a reservoir of experiences. Imagine freedom as the ability to be content with what you have. Imagine power not as control over things, but as control over your perceptions, your reactions, your inner world. As global systems become more complex, as climate change challenges our traditional models of consumption, the philosophy of material detachment becomes more than a personal choice. It becomes a necessary evolution of human understanding. The warehouse of abandoned dreams continues to stand, a monument to human longing, a reminder that true richness exists not in what we accumulate, but in what we are willing to release. The auction house gleams with polished surfaces and hushed anticipation. Priceless artifacts wait to be claimed, their worth measured in currencies both monetary and historical. But Olivia Hartmann sees something else entirely, a museum of human delusion, a testament to our endless quest to find meaning in objects. As the chief curator of international acquisitions, she has watched millionaires and collectors desperately compete for items that will ultimately mean nothing. A rare Ming Dynasty vase, a first edition manuscript, a watch that once belonged to a forgotten monarch. Each item carries the weight of human ego, the desperate attempt to capture immortality through possession. In the dusty archives of Alexandria, the Stoic philosophers would have understood this performance perfectly. Possessions are not markers of value, but chains of psychological constraint. Every object we own requires maintenance, generates fear of loss, creates invisible barriers between our true self and the world. Consider Anton Volkov, a Russian oligarch who spent decades collecting rare automobiles. His private museum housed over 200 classic cars, each meticulously restored, each worth millions. But on the night of his 60th birthday, watching these silent machines under museum lights, he experienced a moment of profound emptiness. These were not treasures. They were monuments to a life lived in perpetual pursuit. The modern world is an intricate machine designed to generate continuous want. Marketing algorithms track our most intimate desires, constructing personalized narratives of lack. Social media transforms consumption into a performative art, where personal worth is measured in curated displays of acquisition. Dr. Esmeralda Rodriguez, a behavioral economist in Barcelona, has dedicated her research to understanding the psychological mechanisms of material attachment. Her groundbreaking studies reveal a startling correlation. Increased material possession directly corresponds with decreased life satisfaction. The more we own, the more we fear losing what we've accumulated. In the remote mountains of Bhutan, a Buddhist monastery offers a different perspective. Here, monks practice a radical form of detachment. Their possessions are minimal: a simple robe, a meditation cushion, a bowl for collecting alms. Yet their internal landscape is rich beyond measure, filled with compassion, understanding, wisdom. Akira Nakamura understands this philosophy intimately. Once a high-powered Tokyo investment banker, he walked away from a life of luxury after a transformative meditation retreat. Now he lives in a 300-square-foot apartment, each object carefully selected, each possession serving a clear purpose. His wealth is measured in experiences, in relationships, in inner peace. The Stoic path is not about deprivation, it is about deliberate choice. It is understanding that every object you bring into your life is a commitment of space, of energy, of attention. What internal resources are you depleting to maintain external appearances? Global systems are changing. Climate crisis, economic uncertainty, technological disruption, these forces challenge our traditional models of consumption. The ability to detach, to remain flexible, to find richness beyond material accumulation is becoming not just a philosophical choice, but a survival strategy. In the California desert, a community of technological nomads has emerged. They work remotely, travel constantly, their entire life's possessions fitting into a single backpack. Their wealth is in connectivity, in adaptability, in the ability to reimagine work, living, human potential. Seneca would have appreciated this approach. The Roman philosopher often practiced voluntary discomfort, deliberately wearing simple clothing, eating basic meals, sleeping on hard surfaces. Not to punish himself, but to prove that happiness is not dependent on external comfort. He wanted to demonstrate the human spirit's fundamental resilience. Imagine wealth not as a collection of objects, but as a reservoir of experiences. Imagine freedom not as the ability to buy anything, but as the ability to be content with what you have. Imagine power not as control over things, but as control over your perceptions, your reactions, your inner world. Silence hangs in the abandoned shopping mall, a cathedral of consumption now crumbling into obsolescence. Broken mannequins stand like sentinels, their frozen poses a mockery of human desire. Here lies the graveyard of 1,000,000 impulse purchases, of dreams packaged and sold, of identity constructed through acquisition. Rafael Martinez walks these empty corridors with the careful observation of an anthropologist studying a lost civilization. As a sociologist specializing in consumer behavior, he has witnessed the elaborate dance of human attachment, the way we build our sense of self through objects, the desperate attempt to find meaning in material things. The Stoic philosophers would have recognized this landscape immediately. Marcus Aurelius, walking through the markets of Rome, would have seen beyond the glittering surfaces, understanding that true wealth resides not in what we acquire, but in what we are willing to release. Consider Elena Kovacs, a Hungarian refugee who fled her homeland with nothing but a small backpack. Her entire world reduced to essential items: a photograph of her grandmother, a worn journal, a single change of clothes. Yet her richness was immeasurable. Her ability to move, to adapt, to survive became her true wealth. Modern technology has transformed possession into a complex psychological landscape. Algorithms track our desires with surgical precision. Social media platforms transform consumption into a performative art, where personal worth is measured in curated displays of acquisition. We are constantly told that the next purchase will complete us, will fill the invisible void that haunts our existence. Dr. James Chen, a neuropsychologist in Singapore, has dedicated his career to understanding the neurological mechanisms of attachment. His research reveals a startling truth. Our brains are literally wired to create emotional connections with objects. Each possession becomes an extension of our perceived identity, a physical manifestation of our deepest insecurities. But what if we could break free? In the remote wilderness of Patagonia, a community of ecological researchers has created a radical model of living. Their research station operates on principles of absolute intentionality. Every object is carefully selected, every resource mindfully used. Solar panels, rainwater collection systems, communal living spaces that challenge traditional notions of ownership. Sofia Rodriguez, the lead researcher, explains their philosophy. "We're not trying to live with nothing," she says, her eyes scanning the minimalist living space. "We're trying to live with exactly what we need and nothing more. Each object is a tool, not a treasure." The Stoic understanding of material attachment transcends simple minimalism. It's a profound reimagining of human potential. What if we measured wealth not by what we accumulate, but by what we can comfortably release? What if freedom was defined by our ability to walk away, to remain unshaken by loss? In Tokyo, Hiroshi Tanaka transformed his entire existence after a near-fatal illness. Once a high-powered corporate executive surrounded by luxury, he now lives in a 250-square-foot apartment. Every item he owns serves a clear purpose. His wardrobe consists of 5 identical black shirts. His kitchen contains precisely the tools needed to prepare meals. "I thought happiness was about accumulation," he reflects. "Now I understand it's about subtraction." Global systems are shifting. Climate change, economic uncertainty, technological disruption. These forces challenge our traditional models of consumption. The ability to detach, to remain flexible, to find richness beyond material accumulation is becoming not just a philosophical choice, but a survival strategy. The airport baggage claim is a theater of human attachment. Travelers clutch their possessions like lifelines, each suitcase a carefully constructed narrative of identity, desire, and fear. But Daniel Walker sees something deeper, a metaphorical landscape of human longing. As a global logistics consultant who has traveled to over 70 countries, Daniel understands that our relationship with material possessions is far more complex than simple ownership. Each object we carry represents a story, a memory, a piece of ourselves we're desperately trying to preserve. The Stoic philosophers would have found this modern ritual fascinating. Epictetus, once a slave who owned nothing, would have observed these travelers with a knowing smile. True freedom, he understood, exists not in what we carry, but in our capacity to let go. In the high mountains of Peru, Maria Delgado lives a life that challenges everything we understand about possession. Her home, a small adobe structure in a remote Andean village, contains fewer than 50 personal items. Each object has a purpose, each tool a story. Her wealth is measured not in accumulation, but in community, in understanding, in her intimate connection with the land. Modern consumer culture is an elaborate machine designed to generate perpetual want. Marketing algorithms track our most intimate desires, constructing personalized narratives of lack. You are always one purchase away from happiness, one object away from completion. The advertising industry has transformed human desire into a renewable resource. Dr. Amira Hassan, a behavioral economist in Cairo, has dedicated her research to understanding the psychological mechanisms of material attachment. Her groundbreaking studies reveal a profound truth. Increased material possession directly correlates with increased anxiety and decreased life satisfaction. The more we own, the more we fear losing what we've accumulated. Consider Thomas Raiko, a Japanese technology executive who experienced a radical transformation. Once surrounded by the latest gadgets, living in a high-rise Tokyo apartment, Filled with cutting-edge technology, he now lives in a minimalist space that would make a Zen monk proud. His entire digital life fits into a single laptop. His wardrobe consists of precisely selected multi-purpose clothing. "I thought complexity was a sign of sophistication," he reflects. "Now I understand that true sophistication is found in simplicity." The Stoic path is not about deprivation. It's about deliberate choice. It's understanding that every object you bring into your life is a commitment of space, of energy, of attention. What internal resources are you depleting to maintain external appearances? Global systems are undergoing unprecedented transformation. Climate change, economic uncertainty, technological disruption. These forces challenge our traditional models of consumption. The ability to detach, to remain flexible, to find richness beyond material accumulation is becoming not just a philosophical choice, but a survival strategy. In the Canadian Arctic, a research community lives this philosophy with scientific precision. Their living quarters are models of intentional design, every object carefully selected, every resource mindfully used. Solar panels, compact living spaces, communication technologies that allow them to work and live with minimal physical infrastructure. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead researcher, explains their approach. "We're not trying to live with nothing," she says. "We're trying to live with exactly what we need, and nothing more. Each object is a tool, not a treasure." Seneca would have appreciated this approach. The Roman philosopher often practiced voluntary discomfort, deliberately wearing simple clothing, eating basic meals, not to punish himself, but to prove that happiness is not dependent on external comfort. He wanted to demonstrate the human spirit's fundamental resilience. 10. See obstacles as opportunities. The human story is etched in struggle. From the moment we draw our first breath, we encounter resistance, a force that defines our character, shapes our resilience, and ultimately determines our greatness. Marcus Aurelius once whispered a truth that echoes through centuries. The obstacle is the way. Imagine a world where every challenge is not a roadblock, but a gateway. Where difficulty is not a punishment, but a profound teacher. This is the heart of Stoic philosophy, a radical reimagining of human potential that transforms pain into purpose, setbacks into stepping stones. Take Epictetus, a man born into slavery, his body broken and spirit seemingly crushed. Conventional wisdom would suggest defeat was his only path, but Epictetus saw something different. While chained, he discovered an internal freedom more powerful than any physical constraint. His master once brutally twisted his leg, and instead of succumbing to bitterness, Epictetus calmly predicted, "You will break my leg." And when it happened, he added, "Did I not tell you that you would break it?" In that moment of excruciating pain, he chose understanding over anger, growth over resentment. But this philosophy isn't just an ancient whisper. It's a living, breathing approach to life that resonates across generations. Consider Malala Yousafzai, a young woman who faced the most terrifying obstacle imaginable, a Taliban assassin's bullet. Instead of allowing that moment to silence her, she transformed it into a global movement for education. The very attempt to stop her became the catalyst that amplified her voice across continents. Look at nature itself, the most profound teacher of adaptation. A mighty oak doesn't curse the storm that threatens to uproot it. Instead, those violent winds force its roots deeper, its trunk stronger. Every gale becomes a lesson in resilience, every challenge an opportunity to grow more robust. The Stoics understood something profound. External events are neutral. It is our perception, our internal response, that gives them meaning. A shipwreck is not a disaster, it's a chance to build a better vessel. A business failure is not the end, it's raw material for future success. A personal loss is not a conclusion, but a transformation. Contemporary science validates what the ancient philosophers intuited. Neuroscientists have discovered that challenging experiences actually rewire our brain, creating new neural pathways of resilience and adaptability. What doesn't break us truly does make us stronger, not as a platitude, but as a biological reality. Consider the entrepreneurs who view rejection as reconnaissance, the athletes who see injuries as opportunities for deeper training, the artists who transform personal pain into transcendent creation. They are modern Stoics, alchemists who transmute lead into gold, turning obstacles into extraordinary opportunities. This is not toxic positivity. This is not pretending pain doesn't exist. This is radical acceptance combined with creative response. It's acknowledging the full weight of a challenge while simultaneously asking, what can I learn? How can I grow? What strength lies dormant within this difficulty? The most powerful human stories are not about those who never faced obstacles, but about those who saw those obstacles as their greatest teachers. Every setback carries within it the seeds of an equivalent or greater opportunity. Every closed door is an invitation to discover a window, a tunnel, or to build an entirely new entrance. In our modern world of instant gratification and algorithmic comfort, the Stoic approach is revolutionary. It demands we step away from victimhood and embrace agency. It challenges us to look at our most intimidating challenges not with fear, but with curiosity. Not as something happening to us, but as something happening for us. Your obstacles are not your enemies. They are your coaches, your sculptors, your most honest friends. They are carving you, teaching you, revealing strengths you never knew existed. In every moment of resistance lies an invitation to grow, to transform, to become more fully yourself. Within the grand theater of human experience, challenges are not intermissions or distractions. They are the very stage upon which our most profound performances unfold. Every seemingly insurmountable obstacle carries within it a secret language, a coded message waiting to be deciphered by those courageous enough to listen. Consider Santiago, a small-town mechanic in rural Argentina. His workshop sat at the edge of a dying industrial region where factories closed and hope evaporated like morning dew. Where most saw desolation, Santiago saw possibility. The abandoned machinery became his canvas, discarded metal his palette. He didn't mourn the industrial decline, he reimagined it. Using salvaged parts from forgotten assembly lines, Santiago began creating extraordinary sculptures. Rusted gears transformed into intricate mechanical angels. Hydraulic pistons became elegant bird wings. Broken conveyor belts wove into complex tapestries of industrial poetry. What the world considered waste, he saw as raw potential. His first exhibition attracted global attention. Museums from Paris to Tokyo requested his work. The very economic collapse that threatened to destroy his community became the foundational narrative of his artistic revolution. His obstacles were not roadblocks, they were the road itself. Throughout human history, our most remarkable transformations have emerged not from comfort, but from confrontation. The great Antarctic explorer Ernest Shackleton didn't view his ship's destruction in the polar ice as a defeat, but as the beginning of an extraordinary survival narrative. When the Endurance was crushed and his crew stranded in one of the most hostile environments on Earth, Shackleton didn't surrender to despair. He transformed the impossible into an epic of human resilience. For 18 months, he navigated hundreds of miles in brutal conditions, keeping his entire crew alive through strategic thinking, unwavering optimism, and a fundamental belief that challenges are not stop signs, but directional markers. Every frozen mile was not a punishment, but a lesson. Every hardship was not a burden, but a training ground for human potential. Modern neuroscience reveals something the ancient Stoics intuitively understood. Our brain doesn't just endure challenges, it grows through them. Neuroplasticity demonstrates that difficult experiences create new neural pathways, literally rewiring our cognitive architecture. Stress, when approached consciously, doesn't break us, it builds us. Think of Dr. Sarah Murnaghan, a young girl facing seemingly insurmountable medical obstacles. Born with cystic fibrosis, she was told her chances of survival were minimal. Instead of accepting this narrative, her family transformed a medical limitation into a landmark legal and medical challenge. Their persistent reimagining of her potential changed pediatric organ transplant policies across the United States. This is not about toxic positivity or dismissing genuine pain. This is about recognizing that within every challenge lies an invitation to innovate, to adapt, to transcend. The Stoic perspective doesn't suggest that obstacles are pleasant. It suggests that obstacles are necessary. Like a river encountering a massive boulder, we have two choices. We can be stopped, or we can carve a new path. Erosion is not defeat, it's persistent transformation. The river doesn't curse the boulder, it simply moves around it, gradually reshaping the very landscape of resistance. In our hyper-connected, instant gratification world, this philosophy feels counterintuitive. We're trained to avoid discomfort, to seek smooth paths. But the most interesting lives are not lived on highways. They're carved through wilderness, navigated through uncharted territories of personal challenge. Your greatest limitations are not external. They are the mental walls you've constructed, the stories you've told yourself about what's possible. Every challenge is a chisel, sculpting the masterpiece of your potential. Every setback is a secret curriculum, teaching lessons no comfortable classroom could provide. The world doesn't happen to you. You happen to the world. And in that happening, in that conscious, courageous engagement with whatever stands before you, lies the most profound opportunity of all. The opportunity to become more fully, authentically yourself. Beneath the surface of every human struggle lies a hidden architecture of potential. Our challenges are not random afflictions, but precise instruments of transformation, carefully designed to chisel away our limitations and reveal the extraordinary being waiting to emerge. Diego Ramirez knew this truth intimately. Growing up in the barrios of Mexico City, he was born into a world that seemed designed to limit his possibilities. His father disappeared when he was 3, leaving his mother to raise 3 children in a one-room apartment on the city's unforgiving periphery. Poverty wasn't just a circumstance, it was a constant companion, whispering messages of impossibility. But Diego heard a different voice. Where others saw dead ends, he saw doorways. While his classmates viewed their economic constraints as prison walls, he understood them as training grounds. He would later recall how washing windshields at busy intersections wasn't humiliation. It was his first business school. Each windshield was a client. Each coins collected was market research. By 16, Diego had started a small maintenance service. By 25, he owned a construction company that employed over 50 workers from his community. The very obstacles that were supposed to crush him became the foundation of his success. Poverty didn't define him, it trained him. This is not a story of individual exceptionalism. This is a universal principle embedded in the human experience. A principle the Stoic philosophers understood with remarkable clarity centuries ago. Obstacles are not external forces acting upon us. They are interactive experiences designed to reveal our most profound capabilities. Consider the Japanese art of kintsugi, a centuries-old practice of repairing broken pottery by filling cracks with gold. Instead of hiding the damage, they celebrate it. The broken vessel becomes more beautiful, more valuable because of its fractures. Each crack tells a story of survival, of transformation. We are no different. Our personal fractures, our failures, our setbacks, our most challenging moments are not blemishes to be hidden. They are golden threads waiting to be woven into the tapestry of our most authentic selves. Modern neuroscience confirms what ancient philosophers intuited. Challenging experiences don't just test us, they actually reshape our neural pathways. Stress, when approached consciously, creates new cognitive connections. Our brain doesn't just survive challenges, it grows through them, becoming more adaptive, more resilient with each difficult experience. Think of Elena Sergeyevna, a Russian pianist who lost mobility in her right hand after a devastating car accident. Where many would have seen the end of her musical journey, she saw a beginning. She retrained herself to play complex compositions using only her left hand. International competitions began creating special categories to showcase her extraordinary technique. Her obstacle wasn't a roadblock, it was a portal to a dimension of artistic expression she could never have discovered through conventional paths. The Stoic approach demands we radically reframe our relationship with difficulty. It's not about maintaining a fake positivity or pretending pain doesn't exist. It's about developing a muscular awareness that can turn lead into gold, that can transmute raw challenge into refined opportunity. Every great achievement in human history emerged not from comfort, but from confrontation. The Wright brothers didn't just dream of flight, they systematically transformed each failure into fundamental understanding. Thomas Edison didn't view his thousands of unsuccessful light bulb attempts as failures, but as necessary data points in his ultimate success. Your challenges are not random. They are precise. They are personal. They are perfectly designed to develop exactly the strengths you will need for your most meaningful journey. Imagine your life not as a linear progression, but as an intricate dance. Obstacles are not interruptions to this dance. They are the very choreography itself. Each challenge is a movement, each setback a rhythm, each difficulty a step towards a performance only you can create. The world doesn't give you challenges you cannot handle. The world gives you challenges to show you just how much you can handle. In this moment right now, something is challenging you. Something feels difficult, overwhelming, perhaps even impossible. Lean into it. Not with aggression, but with curiosity. Not with desperation, but with deliberate awareness. Your obstacle is not blocking your path. Your obstacle is the path. In the silent spaces between what we expect and what actually happens, there exists a profound wisdom, a language spoken not in words, but in the raw moments of human resilience. This is the language of obstacles, a dialect understood by those brave enough to listen beyond the surface of their struggles. Maria Gonzalez understood this language before she could even name it. Raised in a small mining town in Chile, she watched her community slowly disintegrate as the local copper mine, the economic heartbeat of generations, began to collapse. Where others saw only destruction, Maria saw an unwritten opportunity. Her grandfather, a miner for 40 years, had taught her something extraordinary. Cada piedra tiene su secreto, he would say. Every stone has its secret. Those words became her compass when the mining town began to fade. Instead of mourning the loss, she began studying the geological archives, the forgotten maps, the geological histories that nobody had bothered to examine. What she discovered was remarkable. The very landscape that seemed depleted held intricate secrets of sustainable agriculture. The mineral-rich soil, previously used only for mining, could support extraordinary crop diversity. Where others saw a dead industry, Maria saw a regenerative future. Within 5 years, she had transformed the dying mining region into an agricultural innovation center. Abandoned mine shafts became water collection systems. Mineral-laden earth became the foundation for experimental farming techniques. The obstacle of industrial collapse became the seed of ecological renewal. This is not a singular story. This is a universal principle that echoes through human history, a principle the Stoic philosophers understood with profound clarity. Obstacles are not barriers, they are portals. Consider the intricate world of ecosystems. A fallen tree in a forest is not a destruction, but a complex regeneration event. As it decays, it becomes a nursery for new life. Fungi, insects, small mammals, entire communities find shelter, nutrition, and opportunity in what initially appears as pure loss. We are no different. Our personal challenges are not random afflictions. They are precisely designed experiences, each one a masterclass in human potential. Take Dr. James Chen, a medical researcher who lost his vision to a rare genetic condition in his late 20s. Where many would have seen the end of a scientific career, Chen saw a beginning. He developed groundbreaking haptic and audio technologies that allowed researchers with visual impairments to conduct complex laboratory work. His lost vision wasn't a limitation. It was an invitation to reimagine scientific methodology entirely. Modern neuroscience reveals something extraordinary. Challenging experiences don't just test us, they literally reshape our neural architecture. Stress, when approached consciously, creates new cognitive pathways. Our brain doesn't merely survive challenges, it evolves through them, becoming more adaptive with each difficult experience. The Stoic perspective is not about toxic positivity, it's not about pretending pain doesn't exist. It's about developing a profound awareness that can transform raw challenge into refined opportunity. It's understanding that the obstacle is not something to be avoided, but something to be engaged with, deeply and deliberately. Every major human achievement emerged not from comfort, but from confrontation. The greatest inventions, the most profound artistic expressions, the most significant social transformations, all were born in the crucible of challenge. Your obstacles are not random. They are precise. They are personal. They are perfectly designed to develop exactly the strengths you will need for your most meaningful journey. Imagine your life not as a straight line, but as an intricate ecosystem. Challenges are not external threats. They are interactive experiences, each one carrying a specific frequency of growth, each difficulty a note in the complex symphony of your becoming. In this moment, something is challenging you. Something feels difficult, perhaps insurmountable. Lean into it, not with fear, but with curiosity. Not with resistance, but with an open, investigative consciousness. In the silent architecture of human experience, there exists a profound truth that most people never fully comprehend. Our challenges are not external forces, they are quantum conversations between possibility and perception. Each obstacle is a living, breathing invitation, a cryptic message written in the language of potential. Consider Viktor Frankl, a man who didn't just survive the absolute zero of human experience, the concentration camps of World War II, but discovered something revolutionary about human consciousness in the process. While surrounded by the most extreme circumstances of human suffering, Frankl realized that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our greatest human superpower, choice. This is not motivational rhetoric. This is a fundamental reimagining of human potential. Every challenge carries a hidden frequency, a vibrational code that most people are too overwhelmed to decode. Like a quantum particle existing in multiple states simultaneously, our obstacles contain not just one potential outcome, but infinite possibilities waiting to be observed and activated. Take Mariana Rodriguez, a software engineer who became paralyzed after a rock climbing accident. Traditional narratives would suggest her story ended there, but Mariana understood something deeper. Her physical limitation wasn't a conclusion, it was a complex invitation to reimagine technological interaction. She began developing advanced neural interface technologies that would allow individuals with mobility challenges to interact with digital environments in ways previously unimaginated. Her personal obstacle became a gateway to a technological revolution that would transform accessibility for millions. The human brain doesn't just endure challenges, it actually grows through them. Neuroplasticity reveals a stunning truth. Difficult experiences don't just test our resilience, they literally reshape our neural architecture. Each challenge is a precise chisel, sculpting new cognitive pathways, creating neural networks more sophisticated than any previous configuration. Imagine your challenges as a complex encryption. Most people see the locked door. The truly extraordinary see the underlying code, the intricate system that, once understood, can be transformed. This isn't about toxic positivity. This is about developing a consciousness so sophisticated that it can turn resistance into rocket fuel. Where others see walls, you see blueprints. Where others experience setbacks, you recognize raw material for unprecedented creation. The Stoic philosophers understood this centuries before neuroscience could map it. Epictetus, born a slave, recognized that true freedom wasn't about external circumstances, but about internal perception. Marcus Aurelius, ruling the most powerful empire in the world, understood that real power wasn't about conquering territories, but about mastering one's internal response.